Okay, so started another live stream. We had some trouble before, so hopefully we'll not have that issue moving forward. Just going to say welcome all. So the first thing I want to share here is the latest HRR model, or the HER model. And this is focused in on the southeast. And what I think it does a good job of is showing where the heaviest snowfall is currently. And anywhere from basically southwestern Virginia here, along the border of, let's say, North Carolina and also Tennessee, there's some heavier snow that's set up this morning. And there have been accumulations of 3 and 4 inches already in southern portions of Virginia here. Also, as you get towards Bristol and Tennessee, there's been some accumulating snowfall. Um, Northern portions of North Carolina, all the way down into western portions of South Carolina and northeast Georgia. We've already seen accumulations of anywhere from 1 to as much as 4 inches of snow. So what you're seeing here on this particular model run is anything in addition to that. So as we step this forward in time, you can see how the snow begins to fill in slowly over the Raleigh-Durham area as we get into the afternoon. So hopefully by 3, 4 o'clock, we'll start to see that fill in. But meanwhile, we have heavier snowfall that's set up over eastern portions of North Carolina. So as we get into Elizabeth City, right? As we get even towards part of the Outer Banks, right? Like Kitty Hawk, we'll see heavier snowfall in that area. We could also see snowfall eventually come into Cape Hatteras, but that will probably be later in the afternoon, perhaps even Saturday evening there. But if you live from, let's say, Danville, Virginia, southward into Winston-Salem, Greensboro, North Carolina, southward even to Charlotte, North Carolina. And once you start getting that far south, it becomes more rare to see a snowfall like this. And the same thing goes for Spartansburg, also down towards Columbia, South Carolina. Very rare event for you guys to see heavy snowfall like this. And even as you move westward into Gainesville, Georgia, right? Perhaps even Atlanta will see some light snowfall by the middle part of this afternoon. But yeah, if you live in Gainesville, Georgia, you could easily pick up 3 to 6 inches from this event. And as we continue into 4 o'clock, again, looks like snowfall still over eastern Georgia, most of South Carolina. There could continue to be a dry slot here, according to the latest model run here of the HRR. And what that means is that, yeah, the snowfall amount you witness in Winston-Salem, Greensboro, westward into Asheville, are going to likely be much higher than what we're experiencing in the Raleigh-Durham area. Same thing goes for Elizabeth City, eastward into, let's say, Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, even northward into southeastern portions of Virginia. You're going to see heavier amounts of snow there compared to what we're seeing in Raleigh-Durham with that dry slot in place. So when do we actually see that fill in? The latest model run is showing that there's going to be a tremendous dry slot that stays in place there for much of the afternoon. So this is very unfortunate for those that wanted snowfall in the region. Even as we get into southern portions of South Carolina, we can see another dry slot that's set up there. And that means light amounts of snowfall. So what I'm getting is that there's actually a black screen that's set up now, unfortunately. So I think maybe giving this a bit more time this will show up. I did not have this issue before, so I don't know if it has to do with the website or if it has to do with using Google Chrome. So I'm not sure quite what's happening here. Um, so perhaps what we can do, let's do this for a moment. Let's go ahead and stop sharing what we've got here in terms of Google Chrome and go to a different website. Okay, so I just got the news is back on. So uh, yeah, I guess just giving this some time. Unfortunately, it wasn't working before. But yeah, this is as of about 8 p.m. Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, that time frame. And what's going to basically be happening here is that the upper level low is going to begin to phase with that low pressure system off of the Carolina coast. I believe there's two things really happening here that have created these dry slots that we're seeing over southern portions of South Carolina, eastern Georgia, even central portions of North Carolina. There's really two things happening. Um, this phasing is a bit weaker than what was expected. I believe this upper level low that's moved eastward and now combining with the low pressure over North Carolina has weakened significantly. But then also the development of this low pressure off of the Carolina coast, the timing of that actually bombing out and becoming stronger, it's actually taking a bit longer to do so. And I think previous models, if you were to go back several days ago, showed this storm strengthening much more significantly by this point. So that's the reason we're not seeing a tremendous amount of moisture being thrown back into North Carolina, South Carolina. However, there is enough energy here where Western North Carolina, much of South Carolina, eastern portions of Georgia are still picking up 6+ inches of snow. I do believe over southeastern Virginia, eastern North Carolina as well, there's going to be heavier amounts there. And we can see finally by 10 p.m. tonight, we actually see the completion of the phasing between the two systems. And now we can see a solid shield of snowfall through much of South Carolina, through much of North Carolina and southeastern Virginia at this point. Um, the low pressure system itself is at 991 millibars, so a pretty strong system. And of course, that low continues to strengthen overnight as we get towards 12 a.m. Snowfall continuing for many of you. So just to the east of Raleigh, Durham now, I think we'll see very heavy snowfall. And also south of town, I believe there'll be heavier amounts as well. So I think if you live in northern portions of Raleigh, Durham, even to, let's say, the northwestern side, there could be a dry slot that is in place much of the afternoon and really cuts down on your totals. But if you're driving, let's say, south of town, especially east of town, you're going to run into some really heavy amounts of snow. So it really does depend on what side of, I guess, that Tri-City area that you end up on will determine how much snowfall you receive. So as we move beyond midnight, you can see how the heavy snow continues in eastern portions of South Carolina and North Carolina. And that means the snow will continue to pile up in that region. And Cape Hatteras could stay all rain up to this point, up to about 5 a.m. So if you live in the Outer Banks, it looks like north of Nags Head, towards Kitty Hawk, maybe towards Corolla. Um, and of course, towards Virginia Beach, you'll be cold enough for snow. But somewhere around Kitty Hawk is going to probably pick up 10 inches of snow from this storm. And I believe many portions of eastern North Carolina could pick up potentially 6 to 10 inches of snow. Then we're going to find that dry slot, right, working through the central part of North Carolina, parts of South Carolina where we see maybe just 3 to 4 inches of snow because it takes so long for the precipitation to fill in that gap. Um, but yeah, we can see things beginning to wind up at that point. Let's switch to the NAM temporarily here. And this gives us an idea of where else the snow could be hitting next. Now, if we look at this low pressure system, it is moving a little bit further to the north as it's moving to the east. But it looks like as far as jogging towards, let's say, New England, right, affecting Nantucket, that's going to be a bit more difficult for the system, according to the latest runs of, let's say, the North American model. So if we look at Nantucket, how close will the snow get to you guys? And it looks like it could, according to the latest run of the North American model, miss the Northeast entirely. And yes, the models have been trending further and further off the coast the last 2 to 3 days. But again, we can all remember that there was a forecast for as much as a foot of snow if you go back a few days ago. So, yeah, it looks like you guys in Nantucket that wanted snowfall, at least a major snowfall, you might still see some light snow as we get towards, let's say, early in the day, let's say Monday, or actually Sunday in this case. And we can see some lighter snow showers there around 10 a.m., maybe even 11 to 12 p.m. in the afternoon. But then that snow just stays off the coast. And we're talking about what could have been very heavy snow in that area. So that's rather unfortunate for people that did want to see it there. But I think folks that lived in Boston, Providence, Hartford, a lot of you guys have seen plenty of snow, especially from that last system. So for those of you that did receive that snow, it's been so cold recently, you probably have maintained much of it, very little in the way of melting. So that might be very good news for those that live in the Northeast. So moving beyond this point, you can see how the system does begin to push further and further north with time. And we can see snow shower activity, again, very light by comparison here, moving over the Great Lakes as we get towards Monday. But yeah, this looks like it's going to be mainly a southern event. And the Carolinas, Eastern Tennessee, Southern Virginia, parts of Georgia. It looks like the storm is going to be confined to you guys. But I think moving forward, let's see if we can actually take a look at some of the traffic cameras here. So we'll do that next. Let's start in Virginia and kind of move to the south. So we'll go to Virginia 511 and take a look at some of the cameras there. And I think a really good place to start is maybe in Halifax County. It looks like basically from Halifax westward, we got some good snow from this event. So let's take a look at some of the road conditions as well. And wherever you see red, and yellow just means basically caution on the screen, so people are going a bit slower. Where you see red on the screen, that's when the traffic really begins to slow down. So here around South Boston, let's see what's going on there. And this would be on, I guess, 501 North. And I know we can barely make it out here, but it looks like the roads are fairly clear at the moment. So I don't know what chemicals they're using in Southern Virginia and how they're dealing with the system. But it looks like the roads have been plowed and it looks pretty clear here in this area. But if I were to go to a different, let's say, road here in South Boston, maybe we'd see something a little bit different. Let's say S58 connects with 340. Yeah, we can see a bit more snowfall that's collecting on the roads here. But again, overall, it looks like the plowed trucks, VDOT has done an excellent job so far with this particular storm. I think what we're seeing so far is anywhere from about 1 to 3 inches of snowfall in the Halifax area. And that picks up, of course, as we move westward. So let's see if we can kind of zoom out here and take a look at that. So again, yeah, we're taking a look at Halifax County, basically in Southern Virginia. And as we get towards the border of Virginia and North Carolina, towards Danville, let's actually start on the eastern side here for a moment. And this is on Interstate 58, east of Danville, Virginia. And we can see heavy snow coming down, and the roads are covered. And we were seeing here on the traffic map basically either yellow or red, and that was showing that traffic's moving very slowly on Interstate 58. Again, yeah, it looks like it's dangerous travel conditions here, and probably more of like a 3 to 6 inch snow event here occurring near Danville. And it looks like you guys have gotten several inches already on the roadways. But again, VDOT, I'm sure, is doing the best they can in this area. Now, right along the border here of North Carolina and Virginia, and this is on US 58 crossing with US 29. Again, not whiteout conditions, but still some moderate snowfall coming down here. Probably anywhere between a half an inch to an inch an hour snowfall rate here. But yeah, the roads are mainly or mostly covered in this event, especially as you're going over bridges or overpasses. Taking these exits, right? We see an exit here that's going to the left. That is covered, right? It's probably got ice and snow that you'd be dealing with there. But yeah, temperatures, I believe, are around 20 degrees in Danville, Virginia currently. Let's move a little bit further westward. Let's take a look at Martinsville. This is an area that could pick up 5 or 6 inches of snow. I think this is more likely to be where we see the heaviest snowfall amounts in the state of Virginia. And sure enough, as we look at this roadway here, this is where we see that axis of heavy snow that also extends down into North Carolina. And yeah, this is almost whiteout conditions here, probably around an inch of snow per hour, what's falling now. And yeah, this is going to be harder for road crews to keep up with. What you're seeing to the right of this image is an exit completely snow covered. And of course, this main road here near Martinsville is pretty much covered in snow and ice at the moment. So difficult travel conditions, especially as you move westward on Interstate 58 near Martinsville. It looks like that might be the most dangerous area to travel in the state of Virginia currently. So yeah, all of Interstate 58, probably through Stewart, is dangerous. Let's see if we can take a look at, let's check out what this road is called again here. Yeah, it looks like maybe the intersection of 620 and 77 in Southern Virginia. Yeah, not quite as bad here. So yeah, this is Interstate 77, and that road is pretty much clear. But I'd imagine any of the back roads around this area are snow covered. Again, not quite whiteout conditions here, probably more of a moderate snowfall currently. So places to the north of Danville, Martinsville, Hillsville, Galax, far less snow. If I were to go towards, let's say, Lynchburg, Virginia right now, let's say I were to go towards the Liberty University area. Let's take a look at one of the traffic cams here. Not easy to see, but at the same time, you have enough clarity in this image to tell that if they're receiving any snowfall at all, it's very light in Lynchburg. Nothing that will add up to more than probably a dusting or a coating of snow in this part of the state. But, you know, this is not fully true as you move westward towards Roanoke. Roanoke is forecast to get a bit more. They could see 1 to 2 inches of snowfall easily. And in fact, if you look closely at this traffic camera, just to the south of Roanoke City and Roanoke County, we've got some snowfall that's coming down. It's easy to see on the camera. But road conditions are, definitely a lot safer than what we were seeing in Southern Virginia towards Martinsville, right? This is something where traffic is moving at a steady clip near Roanoke, Virginia. Then even let's say southwestward towards Christiansburg. Again, this is another area that's got a bit more people that live there. And again, this is just south of Blacksburg, Virginia. We can see where snowfall is coming down at a pretty good clip, but it's again light to moderate snowfall here, maybe a half an inch an hour rate that's falling. And yeah, traffic is still moving good here uh, near Christiansburg, Virginia. And this is on the interstate, though. So let's kind of take a look here at what route that is. Yeah, this is Interstate 81, uh, mile marker 116.4. So for those of you that know where that is, and that's near 460. It's near that intersection. Um, but yeah, I think if you live basically Blacksburg, Roanoke, Lynchburg, this is not you guys' snowfall. It's going to be far lighter amounts than what you've seen recently. And even back in December, by comparison, you're going to see maybe a coating to an inch in most of these locations. It does go up tremendously as you move southward. So Danville, Martinsville, Galax, you could see 3 to 6 pretty easily from this event. And you guys have actually been seeing snowfall most of the morning. And of course, that will continue through much of the afternoon. One thing that will probably shift our focus to with time is going to be southeastern Virginia. So just kind of keep that in mind when we start looking at these traffic cameras, maybe towards 4 p.m. right this afternoon. Now, before I move on to, let's say, the Carolinas and take a look at the cameras there, let's take a look at Bristol. Bristol, this is kind of interesting to me in that usually when we get a storm out of the west or out of the south, you guys change over to rain very quickly, right? That warm air usually goes up into Bristol, changes everything to rain over time. That is not going to be the case here. This storm system and the low pressure are so far to the south, it's going to be an all snow event. And this does happen when we get lake effect. Even Bristol can sometimes get snowfall from the lake effect, and it stays all snow. But this is, again, kind of a rare event in that this is going to be an all snow event for you guys. So if we look at Bristol on the live traffic cams, yeah, there is snowfall that is coming down there. It's on the lighter side in western Bristol at the moment. What about on the eastern side? Do we kind of pick up on those snowfall amounts, say towards Briarwood? Yeah, more of a light to moderate snowfall that's occurring here. And it could add up, maybe towards a half an inch an hour rate here. But yeah, in general, what we were seeing is Martinsville, maybe to Danville. That looks like that's the hot spot for snow, or lack of a better phrase here. But for areas around it, yeah, we are seeing light snowfall all along the border of North Carolina and Virginia here. So I think the next thing we should do, we should go ahead and take a look at North Carolina itself, see some of the traffic cameras there. All right, so we have that on the screen. What I want to do first is kind of take a look at chat, see if there's been any comments or any responses here. It looks like, yeah, we don't have anybody at the moment. We do have 6 people watching. And if you'd like to, for whoever's going to stay in the chat here and kind of go along with us here, if you have any questions as far as like what's going to be happening in your particular location, you can just drop that in the chat and we can kind of focus on that area a little bit more even. So just let me know. But yeah, we'll continue here looking at the cameras in North Carolina. And after that, I'll take a look back at chat and see if there's any questions or comments. Now, if we look at basically the North Carolina Department of Transportation map, something should stick out to you here, and what you'll notice on the screen, if you look at the roads that are kind of interconnecting there, again, with all the traffic cameras that are involved here, you can see that North Carolina is kind of split up in half. We have basically good driving conditions from the central part of North Carolina, again, much of the Piedmont, towards the eastern shore there. So, yeah, a lot of the driving conditions in much of North Carolina, especially eastern North Carolina, are fine at the moment. But you'll notice as you get into western North Carolina, again, moving up in elevation, probably above 1,000 feet, we're seeing these yellows, we're seeing these reds, and that's indicative of very poor travel conditions over the western portion of the state. So if we were to go down to, let's say, the Winston-Salem or Greensboro area, let's see if we were to take a look at some of these areas here. We can see traffic uh, and vehicle crashes here. Again, this is over, I believe, Winston-Salem. It's hard to tell with all the cameras on the map. But yeah, I think this is the Winston-Salem area. So if we were to look at Interstate 40, right, let's see how Interstate 40 is looking at the moment. And unfortunately, all we can really do here is kind of take a look at still shots of North Carolina. But this gives us a good idea, looking at Interstate 40, how bad the travel conditions are here in Winston-Salem. And this is at the intersection of, think of Interstate 74 and also US 311, just to let you know. But yeah, very heavy snowfall here, almost whiteout conditions. So well over an inch an hour snowfall rates in this area. So this would be a location, Winston-Salem, where we could see over 6 inches easily. And that's going to be from heavy snow basically throughout the afternoon and perhaps even into this evening, involved with that upper level low, right? Moving over the southern Appalachians. So let's take a look at the western side of town, maybe still staying on I-40. Do we see the same thing? So as you get towards Burke Mill Road, more on the southwestern side of Winston-Salem here, again, moderate to heavy snowfall here. And there are cars out on the road, as we can see. Unfortunately, we can't see how slow traffic is moving. But yeah, there are cars out on the road. We do see trucks out on the road. So people are making an effort to get out there. But as far as conditions this afternoon, will they deteriorate? I mean, I think they're already pretty bad here along I-40 in North Carolina. I don't think it's going to change. I think that's the best way to put it. It's not going to change this afternoon, the travel conditions. And it's going to probably be icy through the rest of tonight. And if you're traveling out there, you can imagine on the back roads how bad it is if Interstate 40 is covered. So yeah, we took a look at Winston-Salem. What happens as we get out towards, let's say, Greensboro? Again, we see a lot of yellow, a lot of red on the map here, indicating travel conditions are poor around Greensboro. Let's go towards maybe the center of town and take a look at what's happening here in Greensboro. Yeah, if I look at this picture, it looks like we have basically moderate to heavy snowfall coming down. And it's those big snowflakes, right? Those big fluffy snowflakes that are coming down. Temperatures in the low 20s, if that, right, in Greensboro. And this is probably going to add up pretty quickly. One thing we haven't talked about is the snow ratios in this particular storm. We're talking about 15-1 to maybe 20-1 snow ratios here. So, yeah, what would normally be like let's say a 10-inch snowstorm, right, with an inch of rain water equivalent, could now be a 20-inch event. So what that means is that, yeah, it will take less moisture basically to give us this heavy snowfall. And it could allow for the snow to add up a bit more quickly than what you would normally expect in North Carolina. So yeah, Greensboro to Winston-Salem, looks like you guys have a lot of snowfall coming down. What happens when we get out here towards Raleigh-Durham and Wake County in particular? What's happening in Wake County? And my goodness, what a difference. We don't see anything really on the roads. And again, this is a still image here, but it looks like it's almost like sun wants to peek through the clouds here in Interstate 40 here near Wake County. So it's amazing the difference that we're seeing here just down the road, really, to the east of Greensboro. So big differences there. What about Charlotte? If we go down to the city of Charlotte, and we'll start on the north side of town. Let's kind of take a look at the interstates here. So if we go down Interstate 85, just north of town, let's say at the intersection of 485 and 85. Currently, the cameras are not working there. But yeah, if we go up Interstate 85, just to the north of the intersection with 485, let's get out of these here for a moment. Yeah, we can make out here that it's very heavy snowfall coming down. So Charlotte is another place that will be approaching that 10-inch mark rather than 6 inches. I could see them getting very heavy snow. So this is definitely a historic snowfall for this region. I believe the average snowfall is probably somewhere between 1 and 3 inches a year for Charlotte. It's not uncommon to see snowfall here, but typically when you get it, it's some light snow or some light sleet. And that typically transitions to rain in a larger winter storm like this. But it's so cold this year, right? We got so much cold air that's worked to the south, and we're at the basically the top of the low pressure system. And therefore, we're bringing in more cold air. We're bringing in that heavy snow. And yeah, what you would typically see north of you guys, maybe let's say towards Greensboro, right? Winston-Salem, in a storm like this, is now directly over top of you guys. And yeah, this is a rare event to see heavy, heavy snow in the Charlotte area. So yeah, that's north of town, north and east of town, more or less. But let's say if we go towards the center of Mecklenburg County, let's take a look at one of these areas. So Highway 16, and let's see where the intersection is here. Yeah, so let's take a look at this. So maybe it's hard to pick up here. So maybe Interstate 77 in Mecklenburg County, around that area. Let's see if we can find a good camera in this region. Here we go. Okay, so I-77 north, and this is south of Brookshire Freeway. So we can see moderate to heavy snowfall coming down here. Again, roads are snow covered. But we can see in the still image there are cars out moving and about. But I imagine traffic is far more busy than this on a Saturday afternoon. So I believe a lot of you guys are staying home during this event. But again, yeah, some heavy, heavy snow moving over the Charlotte area, almost whiteout conditions. So this is definitely over an inch an hour what's coming down currently. So yeah, the center of Mecklenburg County there in the city of Charlotte, north side of town, heavy snow as well, we're seeing. If we go westward, let's see if we can find some other important areas here that kind of stick out. I think this is more towards Asheville, what we're seeing here. So, yeah, we can see the word Biltmore. So we know we're in the Charlotte area. Let's say if we get out towards the eastern side of town here in Asheville and take a look at I-40. What do the roads look like? So Interstate 40, intersection of 55 and 70 as well. This is Porter's Cove. Yeah, it looks like about a moderate snowfall, so a little bit less than an inch an hour coming down. But yeah, roads are snow covered. And the only area I see that's uncovered is beneath the bridge here. But again, I could imagine going over the bridges and overpasses right now, probably very slippery in this area. But that's going to continue again through the afternoon where snow continues to pile up. I would think it's going to be lesser amounts in comparison to what we're seeing over Charlotte. Just in general, it could be, again, easily 4 to 6 inches here, I think, in the Asheville area. But I don't think we're going to see 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 inches like we'll see further to the east. Let's get out here towards the center. and this is on 240. So Interstate 240. Looks like we have moderate to almost heavy snowfall here. It's coming down. So yeah, much of Asheville is getting moderate to heavy snowfall at the moment. And all the roads we're seeing consistently, right, in western North Carolina are snow covered. What I'd like to do now, though, is kind of head out to the eastern part of the state here. And let's see if we can kind of check on the Outer Banks and get an idea if we're getting snowfall in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Go out here where our country really first started to begin, and that was in Roanoke Island. And let's see if we can find if there's some snowfall coming down. Now, from what I can tell, it looks like we have some big snowflakes that are trying to come down here on US 64. Oh, this is cool. So yeah, we can see in the bushes here, we can see on the roadways that we do have some big wet snowflakes that are coming down. I imagine the temperatures are probably around 33, 34 degrees. But as that low pressure kind of heads off to the east with time, temperatures are going to continue to drop, winds are going to pick up, and I believe that snow will begin to stick probably by late afternoon. What about a little bit further to the north here? Let's go towards Kill Devil Hills. Again, temperatures are around freezing in Kill Devil Hills. We can see some snow beginning to pile up on the grassy areas, but not quite on the roadways yet. So yeah, we can see some heavier snowfall coming down. It's not whiteout conditions by any stretch of the word here, but we've got definitely some moderate snowfall coming down. So once those temperatures begin to drop off in Kitty Hawk, and especially northward into Kill Devil Hills, we'll see snow begin to pile up. So let's go a little bit further still to the north here. Here we go, Kill Devil Hills. So we've got that, and then, yeah, so just north of Kill Devil Hills. And this is showing US 158. We're seeing snow begin to accumulate on most of the grassy areas, in some ways the sandy areas, right, of this area. But I believe it's going to really start sticking on the roads maybe by 4 p.m., right, this afternoon. So things will probably start to deteriorate at that time. So if we head further and further north, right, along the Outer Banks, do we eventually get to snow cover on the roads? Yeah, we can see North Carolina 12 at Currituck, Clubhouse Drive. Yeah, we're starting to get a coating of snow there. Again, temperatures are more in the upper 20s, maybe towards the mid 20s here. So I'd imagine in the northern Outer Banks, the conditions will definitely be cold enough for snow to begin to really pile up. And remember that low pressure really hasn't developed or bombed out yet. It's not going to do that until later this afternoon and this evening. And that's when the heaviest snowfall amounts will begin to come down in the Outer Banks. So I think around 4 p.m., we're going to see a different or a much different picture in this area. And we'll probably see the roads begin to become snow covered in a place like this. Now, we saw the dry slot right over the central portions of North Carolina. I do imagine there is some snowfall a little bit inland, maybe towards Elizabeth City. Let's see if we can get a good idea here of what's happening. It looks like, yeah, it looks like it's not really, maybe the atmosphere needs a little bit more time to kind of moisten up and the snowfall to actually reach the ground here in Elizabeth City. But yeah, it looks like there isn't a lot of snow coming down in this area yet. And there might just be a lot of dry air that the precipitation's battling in eastern North Carolina. But yeah, if you live Winston-Salem, right? Raleigh, not Raleigh-Durham, but Winston-Salem, Greensboro, down to Charlotte, westward into Asheville, especially if you're driving on like Interstate 85, Interstates 40, those roads in particular, a lot of snowfall, right? That's really piling up in that area. And we saw over southern portions of Virginia, right? From South Boston really to Martinsville. That's another dangerous area to travel. But how about South Carolina? Let's see if we can take a look at a few traffic cams there in South Carolina and get a good idea of what's happening there. All right, so what I want to do before we get into that is kind of take a look back at the live stream, see if we have any questions. Oh, yeah. So, Candy Jane, how much snow will we get in upstate New York? Now, from this system, Candy, it looks like we're not going to get much snow at all. Uh, even for, let's say, New York City, eastward into Massachusetts, uh, even like Connecticut, Rhode Island, that area, Nantucket. Nantucket was supposed to be a big winner uh, with the storm that was developing. Uh, really, 3 or 4 days ago, it was showing heavy, heavy snow for eastern parts of New England. But that's really died down in terms of what is projected for your area. So I would say if you're driving towards Nantucket, you might see a few snowflakes. But I think a lot of you guys, because of the last storm that you received, you're probably very happy not to receive more and probably waiting for the snow to be cleared out from that last event. But yeah, in general, it looks like the Northeast is going to be clear. You're not going to get the same amount of snowfall that the South is receiving. But yeah, so I think we'll leave it at that as far as icy roads. Yeah, I think over the Northeast, I think you guys have done a great job of clearing the roads. And usually the next day or the day after, the roads are clear. And I think the main thing that you might receive is maybe some snow from lake effect, if anything. And again, that's usually confined to Western New York in general. But yeah, as far as future storm systems, it looks like things might be quieting down over the next couple of weeks. And there is potential for additional storms to develop over time, but the latest runs I was seeing was that there might be another small storm system in the south, in the mid Atlantic, and perhaps extending up into places like New Jersey. But in particular, it looks like it's going to be much lighter than what we're seeing even with this system. And this is probably the last big snow in the east, at least for the next week or two, as far as what I can tell from the weather models. But yeah, definitely stay updated. I think we'll have another weather video out Sunday, and I'll look at the latest model runs. But in particular, yeah, it looks like the Northeast is in the clear. And again, I think that is good news for a lot of you guys. So yeah, we can see to the north here. Hopefully in the shared image here, you can see to the north in Charlotte, extending westward towards Asheville. The South Carolina Department of Transportation's actually showed on the map here that road conditions up there are really bad. So they've actually gone ahead and filled that in for us. Now we can also see a little bit of yellow on the screen here in South Carolina towards Spartansburg and Greenville, excuse me. So let's see if we can check out some of the road conditions here as well as some of the cameras near Spartanburg. Yeah, so in Spartanburg here on Interstate 26, mile marker 21, yeah, we can see the live camera here footage showing moderate to heavy snowfall. Again, probably a little bit less than an inch an hour, but again, it's coming down at a very good clip. And yeah, traffic's moving along really good at the moment. They probably did a good job of treating the roads before the storm. They knew pretty much 3-4 days in advance that this event was going to take place. But yeah, it looks like road conditions are manageable at the moment. I see that deteriorating pretty fast, though, especially over the next 2 hours in this area. Let's see a little bit further north of town here as we get towards the mountains. So we can take a look at northwest side of town here, how conditions are. Again, typically a little bit colder, right? And snowfall rates can typically rise as you get higher and higher elevation here in South Carolina. And that looks to be the case where the snowfall rates are a little bit higher on Interstate 26 West. And yeah, still road conditions look pretty good here. Um, the Department of Transportation here in South Carolina has done a really good job on the interstate here. I would imagine the back roads, secondary roads are in bad condition at the moment, though. So anyone traveling to the interstate, just keep that in mind. I'm sure your driveways, the secondary roads are completely covered. Um, but yeah, travel on the interstate itself really seems like people are moving at a pretty good clip at the moment. But I would imagine as we get towards, let's say, this evening, these roads will probably become covered, and I don't want to say impassable, but it will be definitely more difficult to travel on as we get towards dark. So yeah, we took a look at Spartanburg. Let's see if we go a little bit south and west of town here towards Greenville. This is another high population area in South Carolina. And it looks like maybe taking a look at 123 intersecting with 291 here in Greenville. Let's see if we can take a look at here. So this is actually Interstate 385 North in Greenville, South Carolina. And yeah, we can see some of the snow actually sticking to the roads here. Hasn't been fully cleared, but heavy snowfall here. It looks like it's over an inch an hour that's coming down. We've got some of the bigger snowflakes involved with this. But yeah, overall, again, I think the Department of Transportation in South Carolina has done a great job. It looks like the roads are mostly clear. Even some of the exits are clear here along the interstate. Now, let's see if we have anything further to the north and west of town. It looks like roads are impassable as you get up here towards the Smoky Mountains here on Interstate 25, but unfortunately, we don't have any cameras up there. That would be really cool to take a look at. But it looks like on Interstate 26 here near Fairview Airport, there is a camera. Let's take a look at that for a moment. Again, looks like heavy snow coming down here, but once again, along the interstate, they've done an excellent job of keeping the roads clear. And people are moving at a good clip still here in South Carolina. Yeah, I do want to take note that, the snowfall is coming down heavy here in South Carolina, and you guys are not used to the snow like we see in the mid Atlantic and Northeast. So definitely take your time as you go out to secondary roads, even most of the primary roads here before you get on the interstate. I believe will still be snow covered. And there are instances where there are these crashes here in South Carolina along Interstate I-85. We don't really have a camera here to check it out, unfortunately. But yeah, all along Greenville, north and eastward to Spartanburg, basically along Interstate 85, intersecting with Interstate 26 and 385. Very difficult travel in this area. So one of the areas that was a concern about, let's say, the dry slot in particular was between Columbia and Sumter, South Carolina. So this includes Camden, that area, and central portions of the state. There was the potential for that dry slot to even set up there, that far to the west. But let's take a look at it. I think we do have some snowfall in this area. It's probably not quite as heavy as what we're seeing north and west of Columbia. Let's take a look at that for a moment. Yeah, so there is some light to moderate snowfall coming down here, probably around a half an inch an hour, maybe a little bit less in Columbia. But those snowfall rates will likely pick up, right? This is probably the lightest part of the storm that we're experiencing now. And as that low pressure throws back moisture into the upper level low, right? And we have that phasing. I believe that's when Columbia will start to see their the heaviest snow that's involved in this event kind of kick in. But yeah, this is along Interstate 126 East, mile marker 3.4. Road conditions for now are good right along the interstate, but I believe that will change with time. And let's go ahead and kind of go north and east towards Camden for a moment. Let's see what we have up here, north and east of town. Snowfall rates a little bit heavier here, it looks like, and road conditions look a little bit worse. But again, it's not it's not bad by any stretch here along Interstate 20. This is at exit 98 here. But yeah, we can see where the exits, the main interstate, it seems like travel conditions are decent in this area at the moment. Primary roads, though, again, keep that in mind. Primary roads, secondary roads are going to likely be covered as you guys head out today. Now, what about eastward towards Florence? Let's take a look at that for a moment. Are we seeing some snowfall there in Florence? Yeah, so basically, in general, what we're seeing in much of the state of South Carolina is that we're not seeing that same dry slot, right? Like what we're seeing in central portions of North Carolina. Nothing has really added up yet here in Florence, but again, we do have snow falling, and it's coming down at a moderate clip here. So I would think for much of South Carolina, I think we'll see a good deal of snow here for you guys. I think in general, the low end is going to be probably 3 inches of snowfall that you receive in the state. I think we're going to have the potential to have less in certain portions of North Carolina, just because it's such a large state, a large area, right, to cover. But yeah, it looks like the snow is going to do a really good job of filling into South Carolina. And that has to do with the position of that upper level low that's kind of hitting out of the west, right, towards the coast. But yeah, it looks like you guys are in a pretty good position to get snow the rest of the afternoon, the rest of the evening, at least light to moderate snow. So this will add up, I would say, on the low end, around 3 inches. But high end, I can see 6 to 7 inches for you guys in general. And there'll be some locations near the mountains that pick up 8, 9, and 10 inches of snow. So, some other population areas that are, let's say, higher population areas, I should say, let's say towards Conway and Myrtle Beach. Let's take a look at Myrtle Beach for a moment, see what's happening here. Yeah, snowfall in Myrtle Beach. That's crazy. So, Interstate 85 here in South Carolina as we go towards Myrtle Beach. This is mile marker 13.9. Okay. Robert Grissom. I'm not familiar with the area, but that gives you an idea of where it's at. But let's move a little bit further still towards the beach itself. Ah, that's unfortunate. Or fortunate for the ones that don't want it. But I noticed as I went a little bit further towards the coastline, there was nothing. But if you get out here, see if we can go back out here a little bit further. Yeah, just to the north and east of Myrtle Beach, there is some heavy snowfall coming down. So maybe we can take a look at that here coming up on the radar and get an idea, because if you go to the northeastern side of town there in Myrtle Beach, you're receiving moderate to heavy snowfall. If you go towards the center of town, nothing's happening. You got this dry area here over Myrtle Beach. Let's see about the south side of town, if there's any difference there. Yeah, skies are kind of clear here on the south side of town in Myrtle Beach. So, yeah, there's it looks like we have two different weather scenarios here, depending on what side of town you end up on in Myrtle Beach driving. So, yeah, if you're along Interstate 31, basically along the northern tier of Myrtle Beach, you're seeing snowfall. If you take that same interstate to the south, you'll notice that there's none. And you actually see some breaks in the clouds there as you travel south of Myrtle Beach. Now, I'd imagine that roads are probably a little bit better to the south and west in general. But let's check out Charleston and see if there's any snowfall currently in that area, and just kind of get an idea for you guys what's happening there. Yeah, we kind of see some breaks in the clouds here over Charleston. and you can kind of make out um, just the definition of the clouds. And whenever you can see that in the sky, you know that there's really nothing falling. And if anything at all, it's going to be very light precipitation. But for now, at least over Charleston, over much of Myrtle Beach, there looks to be very little in the way of snowfall affecting you guys, at least through the middle part of the afternoon. Yeah, so yeah, there are portions of the state that are getting some heavy snowfall. If you go up towards Columbia, right, you're seeing moderate snowfall move into the area. If you go up towards Greenville, Spartanburg, one thing that you'll probably see on this map is these rib markers with cars. Those are all crashes, I believe, along Interstate 85 between Greenville and Spartanburg. So traffic really is a struggle, I think, as you get towards the northwestern part of the state there in South Carolina. So just keep that in mind. So, yeah, north and west of Columbia, that's where traffic is going to be a little bit harder to get through. And I think road conditions are going to really deteriorate fast. And this is going to continue again through probably this afternoon, this evening, and even into tonight across the state of South Carolina. So let's do this next. We've taken a look at these live cameras in South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia. What I eventually want to do next is take a look at Georgia, especially near Gainesville and Athens, and get an idea of what's happening there in eastern Georgia. I believe it's much the same as what we're seeing in the other states here. But let's go ahead and do that now and take a look at that. And we'll have to select our area, of course. And sometimes it's just easier to go to the map itself to take a look at these locations. And we'll take a look at Atlanta too to see if there's anything happening there, but I believe it's more north and east of town. Even towards Lawrenceville, right? We can start to see yellow on the screen here. And that typically means that there are some travel conditions that are deteriorating when you see that color on the map. Yeah, so we can see here as we go north and east of Atlanta here, we have looks like foggy conditions, but also some moderate snowfall coming down in this area. So yeah, if you're traveling north and east of town, we can start to see that snowfall. But it looks like, again, you'd have to go pretty far north and east to start seeing the snowfall. This map wants to zoom me in for some reason every time I click over it. But let's check out Lawrenceville and see what's happening there. Yeah, Lawrenceville is actually snow covered at the moment. Let's see if we can actually take a look at the video itself here, get a good idea of what's happening with the traffic. Okay, so that's a bit of trouble. Maybe we can try a different camera here. This will be on the north side of Lawrenceville in Georgia. Well, unfortunately, guys, the media cannot be loaded, so we'll just take a look at some of the still images here. But yeah, around Lawrenceville, uh, north and east of Atlanta, we're seeing some moderate to heavy snowfall here. And let's see if we can get towards Gainesville for a moment and check out what's happening there. I believe this area of Georgia in particular is going to see some of the most hazardous conditions from the storm. Let's see if we can check it out here. Yeah, there's a good deal of snow now that's on the ground, and this is all fresh, by the way. This is not from a previous storm by any means. And yeah, we're seeing around, I'd say at least an inch of snow on the ground here in Gainesville. Again, this is more rare in Northeast Georgia than what you'd find, let's say, even in Northwest South Carolina, and especially in North Carolina, right? It's more likely the further north that you move here in these states we've been looking at to receive snowfall each year. And this might be a 1 in 5 year, 1 in 10 year event that we're experiencing here in South Carolina. Some people have been talking about the storm being the snowiest in maybe 20 years, maybe longer in Northeast Georgia. But we'll see if that actually pans out and actually is the case here. But yeah, in general, I'm seeing about maybe 1 to 2 inches in Gainesville already. But again, this is going to be continuing through the afternoon, through the evening, and eastern parts of Georgia. And imagine as we head further to the north and east, those conditions deteriorate even further. So as we get towards, let's say, north and east of Gainesville, near Mount Airy, New Switzerland, that area. Let's see if we can see some of the traffic cams here. Yeah, it looks like we have maybe 2 to maybe 3 inches of snow on the ground here already in this particular area. So this is at Wayside, Habersham, I guess. And this is, it's hard to tell exactly what road this is on. But yeah, we can see where the roads are more snow covered as you move away from the intersection. So whether it's the parking lots or as you move away, even on the main roads here, definitely snow covered in this area. And that will be the case as you get towards the mountains here in Georgia. It's like a totally different climate. And this area does receive snowfall on a regular basis every year. So I imagine as you get up towards Mineral Bluff, uh, let's say eastward towards Clayton, that area, this is more common to receive snowfall every year. And let's check out some of these traffic cams. Not so much to the north of Atlanta, but let's go kind of north of the place we were just looking at, north of Clarksville, and get an idea of what's happening there. So in Clayton, yeah, this is along US 76. This is more common. I'm sure people traveling in this area have seen events like this pretty regularly. And it might be a once in every 2 year event or once every year event that you receive up here in the far northern portions of Georgia. But yeah, this is the intersection of US 76 and 23, completely snow and ice covered at the moment. But yeah, we're kind of getting an idea in general of what's happening. Basically, along the southern Appalachians, right? From Virginia down through North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, that entire area is really getting the bulk of the moisture from the upper low. And it looks like it's going to be the case through at least the early part of the afternoon, where it's kind of confined to that region. It's not going to be until the middle part of the afternoon, maybe this evening, that we see the phasing actually begin to take place. So let's go back to chat for a moment, see if we have any other questions here or comments. Yeah, I think we saw that comment before about icy roads and whatnot. But yeah, and in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Eastern Tennessee, Southern Virginia, that area is going to be dealing with the icy roads in general. And I think for you guys in the Northeast in upstate New York, yeah, I think the road conditions are very good there. I don't see any issues in the near future. Um, but yeah, we're seeing here from this particular storm in places that don't normally see it, right? Um, and they, again, I know we used the word historic last time, but this is another historic like event. We don't see um, these snow events like this in the deep south. And a lot of it has to do with um, the La Nina setup at the beginning of December, beginning to shut down as we get into January. And it's this in between phase between La Nina and El Nino that can bring these big time Arctic outbreaks. And that's what we're seeing here again in January, just like we were seeing at the beginning of December. And all this cold air that was building during, let's say, the latter part of December, early January, is now being funneled southward. And it's staying in place in the deep south. And it's allowing for these storm systems to form moving into the cold air, and we're seeing all these chances for snow that we haven't seen in the last 5, maybe the last 10 years. And in some cases, right, they're saying in the last 20 years, they haven't seen a snow like this. And that's what kind of makes it historic, because if you live in this area, it might be 4 or 5 times you see a snowfall this heavy, right? So if you live in parts of South Carolina, parts of Georgia, and you don't see snowfall every year, and with this event you're getting 6+ inches of snow, that's even more rare. And that's what kind of makes this system and following it important for a lot of weather forecasters, because yeah, we may not see this again for a decade in South Carolina and Georgia and North Carolina, an event like this. So it does kind of make it a little bit more special. So yeah, we'll leave it at that for right now. The Georgia Department of Transportation has done a excellent job of actually connecting South Carolina and North Carolina, what's actually happening there. And you can kind of see the yellow on the map here continuing up into these states here. That's kind of nice to see. It makes it easier to see what's actually happening. But yeah, we can see in Charlotte in particular, Greensboro, we can see some black along the roads here in red. That's indicating probably the poorest driving conditions in the storm currently. Another area I see is Winston-Salem to Greensboro. Also, let's say as you move uphill from Pigeon Forge into the Smoky Mountains, that's another problem area. So in eastern Tennessee. We haven't really taken a look at Knoxville, Tennessee yet. So I feel like that might be the next place to go. Kind of take a look at the traffic cameras there. So we don't want to go to Chattanooga, but we want to go to basically to the northeastern part of Tennessee itself, to Knoxville. And in general, and this is actually a good view to have, we can see that pretty much every traffic cam in Knoxville, Tennessee has snowfall on the ground. Now, whether you're looking at Chattanooga or Knoxville, Tennessee, a lot of these classic snowstorms that develop over the south and move to the northeast, they typically bring up warm air with them. This is totally different scenario because we have this upper level low that's actually moving out of the northwest. And so the energy is actually bringing in a lot of cold air with it. So if anything, the temperatures might drop during the snowstorm. And that's kind of what we're witnessing here in a place like Knoxville, Tennessee. So yeah, you're not going to see snow changing to sleet to freezing rain and eventually rain like you did with the last system. This is going to be all snow. And for that reason, it's going to make travel conditions difficult, not only today, but probably for the next several days for you guys. Let's see if we can take a look at an area where snowfall is still coming down. A lot of the snow that we saw in Tennessee has already occurred. And let's see if we can take a look at this area here. Okay, so Interstate 40 again. So if you're traveling on Interstate 40 today, beware. Eastern Tennessee through North Carolina, take your time. It's going to be a slow go for most of you guys. And we're seeing it here even in Knoxville. Yeah, so it looks like a moderate to, yeah, probably a moderate snowfall here, maybe a half an inch to an inch an hour coming down still. I'd imagine in some places around Knoxville, 4, 5, maybe even 6 inches of snow by the time the storm wraps up. And it'll probably be first for you guys. I think you're going to see conditions begin to dry up first in eastern parts of Tennessee. And it could be as early as 3, 4 p.m. that the snow wraps up for you guys. But as of now, at 1:45 p.m., we're still seeing snow in part of town. And this, again, is along Interstate 40. In Knoxville, Tennessee. Let's see what else we have here. Let's see if we can find a really pretty picture. We got someone actually here at the moment. I guess what they're doing is they're actually, yeah, they're probably just directing traffic, keeping things a bit more safe, getting people to go on the exit sooner probably than later, I'd imagine. But yeah, this is along Interstate 40 still. Looks like moderate to heavy snowfall again that's occurring. This is in the Knoxville region. So at Bridgewater Road. So we got some people working there today. Now this looks like a beautiful shot here. Let's see if we can take a look at it. Yeah, this is a really pretty area here. Got all the trees covered with the snow. Yeah, this would be a beautiful area to set up for the storm. Yeah, everything's snow covered. It looks like several inches of snow has already fallen here in Knoxville. I'd imagine this is mostly new or fresh snow that's occurred here in Knoxville, Tennessee. I think a lot of it probably got washed away from the rain at the end of the last event that we saw. But yeah, this is really beautiful in this area. This is along Interstate 40 West at Knoxville as well. But what's unfortunate again is that we can see tractor trailers jackknife. And it looks like we have that here along Interstate 40. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the road, but this is along Interstate 40 here for those that do know it. Let's see if we can kind of zoom into area. This is an accident here holding up traffic. And yeah, I don't know if the tractor trailer, yeah, it looks like it did jackknife at some point. But I imagine people there are going to be there for a while, and hopefully that guy's safe that was traveling. But yeah, it's just, it goes to show how dangerous this can be for people coming off an exit or a ramp. Those areas in particular are very icy when people are traveling. And if you're making a tight turn like that, that could lead to an accident very easily. But yeah, that's what we're seeing there. This is near Asheville Highway on Interstate 40. So probably leading up into Asheville, North Carolina, where this road will take you. But yeah, that gives you an idea of what's happening there in eastern Tennessee. Now that's a beautiful shot there. And this is at Strawberry Plains there, again along Interstate 40 in Knoxville. But you're kind of getting the picture, right? There's still some moderate to heavy snowfall occurring there. Travel conditions are probably pretty bad here. I would just keep that in mind. Even though the roads look cleared, we're talking about temperatures around 20 degrees in Knoxville. So all this is going to freeze overnight, as you can imagine. So any slush, any water that's left on the roadways, temperatures are going to be dropping into the teens at least tonight behind the storm. So you can imagine roads are going to be difficult first thing tomorrow morning. But yeah, it's amazing how many traffic cameras there are in one particular location, and this is all along Knoxville in Tennessee. I think we'll take one more stop here just to get an idea of what's happening in and around town. So at Hartford, 447.4 West. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit more here. We can see a car that's been moved to the side here, or parked to the side. But yeah, it looks like in this particular location of Interstate 40, probably as you're getting up towards uh, the high mountain areas here, it looks like a good maybe 4 to 6 inches of snow has fallen. So, and this is already in the storm. This might be close to the end of the heavy snowfall that we're seeing. But yeah, this was a good storm for Knoxville in general. And we can see how travel conditions are really rough. And again, this is along Interstate 40, a major interstate here in eastern Tennessee. Yeah, we can see on Facebook and other social media sites where they're saying, yeah, you can check out the road conditions here. And of course, they're recommending people to go there and check out those current travel conditions. And if you live in Tennessee, it's mainly an Eastern Tennessee event. You're not seeing that in Nashville. You're not seeing it in Western Tennessee where you had that severe ice storm before. And that's a good thing. You guys had power outages for the last week or so. And it's good that cleanup crews and power companies are able to travel through the state and help you guys out. So I think what we can do now for the time being is maybe take a look at power outages and see if there's any additional power outages from this storm, just to get an idea of what currently is going on. All right, so from what I can tell, a lot of what we're seeing is probably from the last storm. And this is amazing, right, to talk about because when we think about that last storm and think about what actually followed it, right, we had temperatures falling into the single digits in Arkansas, and Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, right? These places that saw the major ice storm. And still to this day, we have 53,000 customers in Tennessee without power. So some of these people have seen power outages basically for the last week. Um, and that will likely continue for some of you guys moving into next week. So I can imagine some people will be without power for up to 2 weeks from that ice storm that we saw recently. But yeah, currently in Tennessee, 53,000 people without power. If I were to zoom in here to Tennessee, you see that's in central portions in Davidson County to the west of Nashville. 45,000 people without power in that county alone. If we go over here to Hayman County, get a little bit lower here. We're seeing about 1,000 customers there without power. But yeah, western, I think Nashville, in the center part of Tennessee, that area in particular saw probably the most power outages from the storm. So yeah, Davidson County in particular had the most. So if I go to Mississippi, my goodness, we still have 72,000, almost 73,000 people without power. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but yeah, we have some counties here that are hard to pronounce. But yeah, we can see in general 500 to 1,000 people without power in each one of these counties. Lafayette, in particular, has about 12,000 people without power. But by far, in the United States currently, this area has the most power outages. Again, if you can, help your neighbor in this case, because we still have cold weather over the South, colder than normal weather than what people are used to. And they're having to deal with power outages at the moment. And I would imagine over Mississippi, this part of Mississippi in particular, you could see at least another week without power for some people. And that's going to continue. It's not like we had good road conditions for these power companies to get out there and help people. They were very poor after that snow and ice storm that we saw. And then over Louisiana, you can kind of make out, right, over northern Louisiana, connecting with that part of Mississippi, right, western Mississippi into Tennessee. There was that strip, right, of a freezing rain that occurred, that heavier freezing rain band. And still in Louisiana, we have about 23,000 people without power. It looks like the most is right here. Again, I wish I could pronounce it, but near Jackson County in northern Louisiana, north of Caldwell. That's kind of like the epicenter of power outages at the moment. Almost 15,000 people without power there in northern Louisiana. But yeah, let's see if we can kind of zoom out here, see if there's any additional power outages. It's hard to tell. Um, if I were to go to a place like North Carolina at the moment, and let's see if it says anything about new power outages. Let's see if we go to interactive. Oh, this is kind of cool. So we can switch between the radar and where the power outages are. And where we have them is pretty much north of Greensboro here in North Carolina, also west of Charlotte, it looks like. It's where we have a few power outages at the moment. But by comparison to what we were seeing in Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, places like that, uh, again, far less in terms of what we're dealing with here in North Carolina. This is going to be primarily a snowfall event for you guys. And you, again, can see the obvious dry slot here from Myrtle Beach northward into Raleigh, even into central portions of Virginia here, um, through Lynchburg, right? We're seeing that dry slot. And then the snow picks up on either side, right? In Richmond, also westward into Roanoke. Yeah, it looks like there's going to be a strip here that stays in place probably through the afternoon. Um, and places that we're expecting it, right? From Raleigh to perhaps even Goldsboro down to Fayetteville. Areas like that could have gotten a lot more snow than what we're seeing. But that's where the dry slot ended up setting up this afternoon. One thing we can do as well that would be kind of interesting to take a look at is NOAA itself. We can kind of get a high resolution radar over North Carolina. I think a place to kind of take a look at, one of the higher population areas of North Carolina that's receiving a lot of snowfall at the moment, is in Charlotte. Yeah, the National Weather Service is calling for 5 to 9 inches this afternoon alone, and another 2 to 4 inches overnight. So the low end amount would be 7. And according to the National Weather Service, you guys could see upwards of 13 inches of snow. So you're practically in the bullseye of the storm if you live in Charlotte. Now let's see if they have any other maps here that would be interesting to look at. Okay, so here's the latest. And this gives you a good idea of the Western Carolinas, also northeastern parts of Georgia. So this actually gives us a good snowfall map here of what the National Weather Service is expecting based on all the models, based on what we're seeing on the radar now. Anywhere between 9 and 10 inches is expected in Charlotte. But again, that's kind of the middle of the road value of what we were seeing, right, in that 7 to 13 inch prediction. So you could see more, you could see a little bit less. That's what they're saying. And but in general, if you want to be in the bullseye of the storm, it looks like Charlotte, maybe southward into Rock Hill in South Carolina, southward even towards Chester and Union, westward towards Spartanburg. That entire area is going to be getting a really good snow today. And this is probably a once in a decade event, what we're experiencing here, right? Where places like this are receiving a very heavy snowfall. Again, I don't think a 3 to 6 inch snowfall is that uncommon either. We probably see that maybe once every 5 years. But something this large of, again, nearly 10 inches of snow, it's quite a large event and a very rare event indeed. But again, this is only for western parts of North Carolina. We were talking about Asheville earlier of about 4 to 6. It looks like the National Weather Service is predicting around 6 inches of snow for you guys. And then as you get towards, let's say, southwards towards Greenville, South Carolina, they're showing about 7 inches there. But in general, what we're finding is that east of the Appalachians, anywhere east of the Appalachian Mountains, east of the Blue Ridge for you guys that live in North Carolina, you probably call it the same thing in South Carolina, but east of that ridge of mountains, you're going to probably see the heaviest amounts of snow. And that's just as you're working your way into the Piedmont area of North and South Carolina. But yeah, it looks like in the mountains themselves, I'm sure the higher peaks are getting more than what we're seeing here. Um, but some of these valleys are getting way less. We're seeing anywhere between 0 and 2 inches in some of these valleys in between the Smoky Mountains. So there's going to be some dry slots in some of these localized areas that we can't pick up on the radar itself. But yeah, we got a good idea here. So Interstate 77, Interstate 85, Interstate 26, and even Interstate 40, right? As you go east of Asheville, in particular towards Hickory, Statesville. It's probably going to be a nightmare travel situation if you're traveling between now and midnight, I'd imagine. So just kind of keep that in mind. The next thing I want to do here, and let's kind of zoom out for a moment, is look at the local radar itself. And this can give us an idea of where the heaviest snowfall is actually occurring at the moment. And we probably have some orographic lifting here that's occurring east of Knoxville in Tennessee, so near Morristown. Maybe we can take a look at that layer, I guess, in terms of traffic cameras in eastern Tennessee, get an idea of what's happening there. But looks like there could be some heavier bands there as the snow is uplifting over the higher ridges and mountains in that area. But east of Asheville, we can see where the snow band is setting up over Greenville, Spartanburg, and the band is slowly kind of working its way to the east. And with it, we're going to see the snowfall rates decrease over Asheville. Places like Anderson, South Carolina. It looks like Boone, you guys were over the ridge there in a higher elevation, right? I think it's around 3,300 feet in Boone. It looks like most of the heavier snow is going to be east of you guys. But yeah, if you live in Hickory, you probably have several more hours. If you live in Charlotte, yeah, you have all of this heavy snow that's yet to move through the area. It looks like, again, this particular loop is over the course of maybe 18 to 20 minutes here. But you can kind of get a good idea that you're going to see several more hours of heavy snow in Charlotte. And the same thing will be true for Spartanburg. As you move down towards Newberry, Columbia. Columbia, you're just really getting into the heavy snowfall now. And with how it's actually moving and turning, it looks like you're in a very good location to pick up some heavy snow. And I wouldn't be surprised if you guys see upwards of 8 to 10 inches as well. There's going to be some happy people down there. I've heard online that have been talking about snow and wanting to see it so bad. So I know you guys are going to be really excited about this event. Let's see if we can move a little bit further to the east now. Let's see if we can take a look at Greensboro, Winston-Salem, get an idea of what's happening there. I think just to be fair here, let's kind of take a look at what the National Weather Service is saying for this area as well. I think for anyone that's watching it that is curious about this area, even if they watch this later, it'd be kind of interesting to them. Oh, this is actually a really good map here. So this is additional snowfall, I believe. So Winston-Salem, High Point, Greensboro, you've seen snowfall already. But what it's showing is between 1 p.m. Saturday. So basically, when we restarted this live stream to about 7 a.m. Tuesday. And they're showing right around Greensboro, maybe 4 inches of additional snow. Winston-Salem, about 4.7 inches additional snow on top of what you've already seen. Again, this is taking account of that heavy band eventually working its way to the east. So snowfall rates will continue to drop according to this probably as we get into late afternoon. Charlotte, an additional 7.7 inches on top of what you've already seen. Again, probably seen 2 to 3 inches already in Charlotte. South and east of town, your heaviest snow is just arriving now. You got another 8, maybe 8.5 inches of snow, according to this. And let's see over places like Columbia. Let's see if we can kind of zoom in a little bit more to that area a little bit better for you guys. Yeah, over Columbia, it looks like additional maybe 6 to 7 inches of snow, especially on the north side of town and east side of town. Um, so, yeah, if you've already received an inch or two in that area, yeah, you could easily pick up 6 inches or more on top of that. Um, and what's interesting to me, too, is looking at Myrtle Beach. Myrtle Beach could pick up anywhere between 7 inches on the north side of town to as little as maybe a couple of inches right along the shoreline. So there's going to be a big cutoff depending on what side of town you end up on in Myrtle Beach. What about a place like Charleston, South Carolina? Will you guys get any snow out of this? Again, it looks like in and around town, a good 3 to 4 inches of snowfall, according to what the National Weather Service is showing at the moment. North of town, again, it picks up a little bit, but you're not going to see this huge gradient in terms of snowfall differential as you move, let's say, from south to north in town. Yeah, it looks like the heaviest parts are going to be from a line of about Myrtle Beach north from there. So let's see if we can. It's just kind of hard to zoom in on this area. Oh, this is probably a very hard forecast for people that um, are forecasting in Wilson and Greenville, North Carolina. This is kind of crazy how it changes. So if you live in Raleigh, they're showing still about 3 inches of snow for you guys. And that's going to be when that phasing initially occurs between the two systems. You'll probably get a period of moderate to heavy snow for several hours. It probably will not be for a very long period of time. But when it does, the greatest impact is going to be to the south and east of you guys. So Goldsboro, we see that pick up to almost 5 inches of snow. Rocky Mount, about 4.5 inches, according to what this set of models is showing. And then all of a sudden you get to Greenville, 8.5 inches, right? Kingston, 9 inches of snow possible. And then even down here towards Jacksonville, let's see if yeah, there we go. We can actually pull this up a little bit further. Jacksonville, 10.5 inches of additional snow expected. So this storm is yet to develop really for the eastern portion of the state. And you got this heavy, heavy snow that's yet to come here. So not so much like 1 p.m., 2 p.m. We're talking about really this evening when the peak of the snowfall hits for you guys, again, east of Raleigh. And looks like from Jackson to New Bern to Greenville, north and east of town here, far less population as we get into this area east of Raleigh. But again, whoever lives out here is going to see a very good snow. And then as you get out towards the Outer Banks, near Manteo, Nags Head, the potential exists for 10 to 12 inches for you guys out here. So, and this is additional snowfall from 1 p.m. forward. We were seeing out there's some locations that had like a dusting to a coating of snow, but in most cases, nothing yet is really sticking to the roads. There's some snow that's sticking to the sand and whatever grass we have there, but in general, nothing is really piling up there. So what you're seeing on this map is probably storm totals for you guys. So anywhere between about 10 and 11 inches, according to this. All right, so yeah, that is a really good representation of what the storm is going to do. And I think these are really good assessments of what the snowfall totals will be in North and South Carolina. This also shows Eastern Tennessee, what's yet to fall. A lot of what's yet to fall is just going to be upslope snowfall. What's being projected here is that, oh yeah, most of the snow that's falling in Knoxville is finished. In fact, in the next hour or two, a lot of what we'll see is going to be lighter amounts. So as you get into Knoxville, they're maybe seeing another coating to 1/2 inch of snow. For what we were seeing there, if you are driving, let's say, east of town, as you get into the mountains, probably heavier amounts of snowfall there, especially near Morristown, I would say, and especially as you get into Johnson City, of course, and that's what this map is showing. Um, but in general, I think it could be under predicting what we're seeing in northeastern Tennessee. We were seeing on the radar map there some heavier amounts of snow. Um, I think the most disappointed people in this storm is going to probably be near Durham and Raleigh, even near Sanford. I think a lot of you guys were expecting more than what we were seeing here. But again, it's because of that dry slot, right, between the upper level low and that developing low off the coast that's set up. Northeast, let's say into Virginia, over Norfolk and Virginia Beach. You guys are just beginning to get into the snow now. So, yeah, from 1 p.m. on, it's really the storm totals that we're seeing here, and that's about 4 to 5 inches in Norfolk. Again, another high population area of the state of Virginia. Chesapeake, same thing. Virginia Beach, same thing. And as you get towards the most southeastern portion of the state of Virginia, near the border of North Carolina, those totals really pick up. You could see 6 to 8 inches to the south of Virginia Beach. And yeah, you can see for you guys that live in Richmond, Lynchburg, Blacksburg, basically nothing from this event. Um, the storm totals might be under predicting what's happening in Martinsville and Danville at the moment. They're showing maybe 1 to 2 inches additional snow. It could be a bit more for you guys. It just depends. But there was a heavier band, I think, here between Martinsville and Danville that set up recently. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit more than what they're showing here. Yeah, so as we zoom in here and we kind of take a look at this current radar, let's see if we can kind of panel around here. Yeah, we can. We can see where there's really heavy snowfall over Greensboro, Durham, near Raleigh, Lexington, that area, the central part of North Carolina. And yeah, wherever you're seeing this dark green, and you can see several of these bands here south of Greensboro as well, that's over an inch an hour, definitely of snowfall that you're seeing there. Where you're seeing the lighter greens here, this is probably anywhere between a half an inch and an inch an hour over Martinsville, going into Mount Airy and just south of Roanoke, even in Virginia. So I think what was hard for the National Weather Service to pick up on was, okay, where's that band of heavier snow going to move into parts of Virginia? And I think, yeah, near Martinsville, they're going to be the biggest winner in the state of Virginia. But yeah, over portions of North Carolina here between Lexington, Greensboro, Durham, Raleigh. Yeah, I think Durham and Raleigh are going to start picking up on some of that heavy snowfall now. It looks like that's going to begin to finally fill in as we approach 2:30, maybe even 3 o'clock for Raleigh. But yeah, you guys in Greensboro have been getting it so far. Looks like you're going to have several more hours of heavy snowfall. Uh, and the same thing is true, of course, for Lexington. Now, Hickory, this gives us a good idea here. It looks like the snowfall is going to probably decrease in intensity as you're moving along Interstate 40 there. Um, I'd imagine snowfall rates are probably a half an inch an hour or less currently, and that's going to probably decrease over time. I guess there could be some wraparound moisture that gets thrown back into that area if that storm really gets going off the coast. But that also has a tendency to kind of pull the moisture towards it as well. So, yeah, there will be phasing and there will be kind of this amplification of snowfall when they first phase. But I could see the backside of that snow really coming to an end over places like Hickory, North Carolina. So let's do this for a moment. I'm going to go back and take a look at chat and see if we have any other questions or comments. And Impassion said a bomb cyclone over the Carolinas, that surely isn't something that happens often. No, it isn't. It's something that I would say occurs maybe once every 10 years. We'll get a good snow in North Carolina in particular. So if you're near Greensboro, Winston-Salem, to Durham and even Raleigh, this does happen. I remember growing up in Virginia, and sometimes North Carolina would get the big snow, and we would miss out. And you might only get one or two chances in a season for that to happen. And yeah, they've gotten 10, they've gotten even 20 inches of snow before. If you go back to the year 2000 event, I think there was a snowstorm that delivered nearly 20 inches to the Greensboro, Durham area. So it's not uncommon, and it does happen. But again, we're talking about maybe once a decade, once every couple of decades that we see a storm like this. And yeah, it looks like that could happen today where we get over 10 inches of snow in a place like Charlotte or a place like Greensboro. That could happen today. And it is a very rare event. What's more rare is what's happening really to the east of those locations, right? If you get towards the Outer Banks and you get 10 inches of snow, that is very rare. And it might be the snowiest we've seen in decades. And same thing for parts of South Carolina. We're talking about decades, maybe, that we've seen a snow like this in Columbia. And that might be something that we can do next. Maybe we can ask AI, when was the last time Columbia, South Carolina got 10 inches of snow? Or maybe even 6 inches of snow, right? To kind of keep things real here in the sense that we could have, less than 10 inches of snow. But let's see. All right. So according to this, again, if AI is being real here, we've had greater than 10 inches of snow before, but the last time it did that was in 1973, where we had 16 inches of snow in Columbia, South Carolina. Now, what we will probably see today is more like the event from 2010. Um, I think this is the last time there was 8.5 inches in Columbia, South Carolina. And this was from the February 12th to 13th event in 2010. So that stretch from 2009 to about 2013 was a very cold stretch for the United States. And it doesn't surprise me that one of those years we saw a heavy snowstorm in South Carolina. But yeah, they're saying about 8.5 inches occurred. This is almost 15, 16 years ago, right? And if we got to February this year, right, February 12th in particular, it would have been 16 years since we had a snowfall this heavy in South Carolina. Let's do this while we're at it. So we've looked at Columbia, South Carolina. This is a historical event, right? If we were to get over 8 inches of snowfall, it hasn't occurred since 2010. What about a place like Kill Devil Hills? So when was the last time Kill Devil Hills got 10 inches of snow? So Kill Devil Hills, as of last year, January 2025, according to this, had anywhere between 9 and 10 inches of snow. So this is interesting. So even 2018, there was about 8 to 10 inches of snow. And then you have to go all the way back, though, to 1989, where there was 13.3 inches at Cape Hatteras and 10 inches in Matio. So yeah, there was a couple of years there, 2018, 2025, about a 7-year gap between those two events where we saw 8 to 10 inches of snow. Um, then you have to go back to the Christmas blizzard of 1989, where we had 13.3 inches. And they said the major event was 12 to 18 in 1980. So there's 12 to 18 inches of snow in 1980. And then even further back to 1943, there was another event. But on average, we're probably seeing once per decade, right, of an event like this. And if we get over 10 inches, right, we will beat out that 2025 event. If we get over 10 inches, we'll beat out that 2018 event. And it will be the first time since 1989 we've seen over 10 inches of snow over a large area, right? Near, let's say, Cape Hatteras, up the Kill Devil Hills, and so forth. So, depending on how this goes, and depending on how strong that storm actually becomes in eastern North Carolina, we could see something that matches what we have here in 1989. So, yeah, well, we'll see how it pans out. And it might be something that we talk about in Sunday's videos, some of these storm totals, right, over eastern North Carolina. But yeah, we're seeing so far that this has occurred recently where we've seen 8 to 10 inches. What is more uncommon looks like to be in Columbia, South Carolina, right? The last time we saw an event like this in Columbia, South Carolina was, again, almost 16 years ago. So that gives you a general idea. What about another location here that's receiving snowfall is Gainesville, Georgia. So Gainesville, Georgia is receiving anywhere probably between 3 and 6 inches of snow. When was the last time they received 5 inches of snow? Let's just see here for a moment. Let's see. So this gives you an idea of a similar event. We have, instead of February, we have January of 2011. Again, during that cold stretch, right, those cold years that we had over the U.S. from about 2009 to 2013, of about 6 inches of snowfall, right, that fell in Gainesville, Georgia on January of 2011. So again, this would be 15 years for Gainesville, Georgia, if they were to receive something like a 6-inch snow. So in general, yeah, it can be greater than a decade, or once in a decade, once every 2 decades that you see a storm like this. So it's not every year, and there's a lot of years we don't see snow. And there's going to be a lot of first-time drivers that are seeing a snow like this. And one thing that needs to be mentioned here is that whether we're talking about the ice storm we saw last week or the snowstorm we're seeing this week, there is a lot of cold air involved with this, and the staying power that this storm will have. So we could see cold temperatures, right, that come in behind this storm even over places that are receiving the snowfall. And maybe that's something we can take a look at next is, all right, what are the temperatures going to be like in North Carolina and South Carolina? What are they going to be like in eastern Georgia, right, after this event? And maybe that'll be something that's interesting to see because it's not going to go anywhere tomorrow. It's going to be very cold over these areas. And it may stay there for a couple of days, maybe 3, 4 days, right? Depending on how cold the temperatures are after the storm actually exits the area. So let's go ahead and take a look at that now. I think what we'll do too, we'll go ahead and take a look at maybe the NAM. So this is the North American model. When you see 3 km, that just means the resolution. The lower the number, the higher the resolution. So if you see 12K, you see 32K, it's not actually making it more apparent what's happening. It's actually not as good of a resolution as the 3 kilometer that we're seeing here. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom into the southeast. So again, kind of playing out the latest model, we can see how snow kind of fills in over much of North Carolina, right as we get to 9 p.m. tonight. The snow continues to about 4 a.m. over the Outer Banks, the eastern parts of North Carolina and South Carolina. That storm really wraps up. Now, let's take a look at maybe 7 a.m. tomorrow morning and see what the temperatures are forecast to be. And my goodness, we have single digits through the Appalachian Mountains. We have teens down to Charlotte. And if we indeed get 10 inches of snow, they're showing a temperature of about 10 degrees in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is not common at all. And then further to the south, we have temperatures in the teens over Columbia, South Carolina. So you wake up first thing tomorrow morning and you have 8 inches on the ground of snow, right, in Columbia, South Carolina, and you have temperatures in the teens. Very uncommon. Eastern Georgia, the same thing, right? We have temperatures in the teens tomorrow morning. And probably one of the biggest stories for people that live down in Florida is the freeze. We have temperatures in the 20s down to almost South Florida. You can see this 30-degree temperature almost down to the, let's say, the southern tip of Florida there. So it gives you an idea of how cold of a cold air outbreak we have in place that's accompanying this shortwave, right, that is delivering snowfall over the Carolinas. And what's kind of adding insult to the injury here is that we have that developing low pressure system off the coast of Cape Hatteras. And on the backside of it, it's bringing it down even more cold air with it. And yeah, we're seeing those single digits not only over the Appalachians, we're getting reinforcing cold air over the Ohio Valley, over Illinois, Missouri. Yeah, so anyone living in the Southeast that is experiencing the snow today, it's not going anywhere tomorrow. That's the bottom line. It's not going anywhere tomorrow. And let's kind of take it to tomorrow afternoon. Again, imagine temperatures around 12 p.m. being below freezing in many of these areas that are receiving the snow. So Columbia, South Carolina, still 30 degrees, right, for a daytime high here around 12 p.m. Gainesville, Georgia, much the same. And then possibly as we get into the afternoon, middle afternoon, temperatures rising into the middle 30s. But you know as well as I do, there's not a lot of melting that accompanies that. So there will be some snow left on the ground in these places. And then over the Outer Banks of North Carolina, look at this. Temperatures stay below freezing the whole day tomorrow. So you guys that are ending up with possibly 10 to 12 inches of snow, really no melting at all tomorrow if you live in Kill Devil Hills. And then, of course, as we get into tomorrow night, Sunday night, you can see how those temperatures drop again. And as we get towards 8 a.m. On Monday morning, we still see a lot of teens and 20s in North Carolina. We see lower 20s in South Carolina, mid 20s in Georgia. And as you get towards Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina, temperatures in the teens there as well. My point in mentioning all this is that, yeah, we will see snowfalls. And sometimes after an event like this, it melts the very next day. Not the case this time. We're going to have the snow stay in place on the ground, at least for a day or two. And you're not going to see a large-scale melting take place, at least rapid melting, after this storm exits the region. And even as we get into, let's say, Tuesday afternoon, we will probably have more melting Tuesday afternoon for you guys. Let's just make sure that we have the right date here. I wanted to tell you the right thing. Oh, no, this would be Monday afternoon. So Sunday afternoon, yeah, not much melting, but Monday afternoon, we'll have temperatures in the 40s in Gainesville, in the 40s in Columbia, South Carolina. So we will start to get into more melting as we get into the day Monday. But I imagine any area that's received snowfall, again, getting into the 20s even Monday morning for you guys, schools are going to be canceled without a doubt. I would say in Gainesville, in Columbia. And they could be canceled for several days, right? Even though the snow's melting on the main roads, a lot of these back roads are going to stay snow covered, right, through Monday and into Tuesday. Over the eastern Carolinas, notice that there's a cold region. We have temperatures in the low to mid 30s here from that snowfall. So it's kind of created its own microclimate there where temperatures to the west are higher, temperatures to the north are higher. You don't see that typically. So over eastern North Carolina, these models are picking up on the heavy snowfall in eastern North Carolina. And some of the coldest temperatures in the state will likely be in eastern North Carolina on the day Tuesday. So that's kind of cool to look at this, almost the secondary impact that's taking place from the system. As far as like power outages in general, by comparison to the last storm, I think it's going to be far less. We're seeing really a dry, powdery snow. We're not seeing a wet snow really with this event. So I think we're going to see very little in the way of power outages in North Carolina, South Carolina. The only exception is going to be along the coast where we have those winds really kicking in. There are some models showing hurricane force winds in the Outer Banks when that storm really gets going. So not only will we have, let's say, beach erosion and have these higher waves right along the coast, but we could indeed see some power outages from the high winds that are going to be accompanying the system. And that will be mainly tonight, maybe early tomorrow morning that we see that. Now, what's going to happen as we go beyond this point, right? Let's say as we go beyond Monday afternoon into Tuesday. We do see some warmer temperatures moving into eastern Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas. The warmth is trying to move to the north and east with time. But what's likely going to happen is we're going to probably see another reinforcing shot of cold air next week. So all points kind of show that the mid-Atlantic in particular is going to stay cold or colder than average, even as we go through next week. All right, so yeah, if you guys have any other questions, I'm checking chat again right now. We had questions earlier about upstate New York. Again, nothing is expected in upstate New York or New England from this storm. I know some of the models were showing heavy, heavy snow right near Nantucket, even up to Boston, Providence, Hartford, Connecticut even was included in that snowfall map that was released, I guess, 3 or 4 days ago by some local forecasters as a potential, right, for this storm developing. But it's not panning out. The low pressure was supposed to redevelop even to the north of this coastal low in the Carolinas. And what's going to happen is that it's not going to redevelop. If anything, it's going to kind of kick out to the east, away from land, right, with time. And there is some jogging northward that we're seeing where, let's say, a place like Newfoundland in Canada could see some heavy snow from this. But I think locations like Boston, Hartford, you're going to be way too far to the west to receive any snowfall from this event. But another question was icy roads. Yeah, if you're going through Southern Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, for anyone that's traveling in that area, we were talking about I-40 being a nightmare right now. It is in North Carolina. Interstate 85, that's another trouble area. I think that goes through South Carolina, North Carolina, maybe even into parts of Georgia. That's another really difficult area to travel in northwestern portions of South Carolina, western portions of North Carolina. The heaviest snowfall, again, is kind of moving into the Columbia area now. And we're starting to see that dry slot being eroded, really. and central portions of North Carolina. So I think that might be the next place we look at again, and then eventually kind of get into some of these traffic cameras like we were before and some of the road conditions. But yeah, the bomb cyclone, like we were seeing, for anybody that's watching this live now, we were discussing earlier how rare of an event this is, and Impassion was asking a question about it. It's more rare for eastern North Carolina and central portions of South Carolina, what we're seeing today. Again, we're seeing maybe the snowiest event since 2010, 2011. So we don't see storms like this that often. And of course, they're more common as you move northward, right, with latitude. So if you move into a state like Virginia, points north, you will see events like that more often. And especially as you get into the Northeast, right, downwind of the Great Lakes, you guys see it way more often. And that's what makes this more historic, I would say, for the Southeast, is that we're seeing an event that doesn't happen very often. And you think about someone who is maybe 30 years old in South Carolina, in Columbia, that area, and you may not have had your license 15 years ago, but you have your license now, right? And this might be the first time you're driving in an event like this. And that's what makes it significant. You may not, in all of your working years, seen an event like this. And the same thing is true for first time drivers, right? Let's say you have some young people on the road. If you're a parent and you've got a 16-year-old out driving today, you might be a little bit concerned. And I think that's why it's important to get online like this and stream this. And there's a lot of forecasters doing that today because, yeah, there are a lot of people that don't have experience driving in conditions like this. And we're not talking about 32 degrees and wet snow here. We're talking about snow that's sticking immediately on impact. We have temperatures in the 20s and teens across North and South Carolina. So, yeah, it is a rare event. And they call it a bomb cyclone again because the low pressure is going to drop 24 millibars of pressure in 24 hours. It's not going to be quite as impactful, though. Like, it's not going to impact the Northeast like it was showing before. So, it's not going to be memorable for a lot of you. And it will be, though, for those that live in North Carolina and South Carolina. They'll probably talk about this for years in terms of the amount of snow they saw in the year 2026. But yeah, I think what we'll do next is we'll go back to North Carolina, kind of zoom into central portions of North Carolina, take a look at that. And I'll come back to chat again and take a look at the questions later. And of course, if you have any questions about the chat, I'll try to take a look at that here probably in the next 30 minutes or so. All right. Well, guys, I'm going to need to take a puppy dog outside. So I'm going to have to take a break from the camera here briefly. But I'm going to leave this radar image up on the map here so you can kind of see it. You can see where Raleigh, Durham, that area is starting to fill in, especially west of Raleigh in particular. We can see some heavier snowfall over Durham. Fayetteville, no snow yet for you guys, but it will eventually fill in, let's say maybe in the next hour or so. But yeah, if you live from Durham to Greensboro, southwestward into Charlotte, some very heavy snowfall is occurring in that area. The same thing is true for Winston-Salem as well. And then eastward, let's say into Greenville, Elizabeth City, Kill Devil Hills, we have more heavy snow filling in that area. So, yeah, it looks like a lot of North Carolina is getting some moderate to heavy snowfall currently. And same thing is true for South Carolina. We can see over Greenville and also Spartanburg, we can see heavy snowfall there, but the back edge of that snowfall is really starting to move into the Greenville area. We see some lighter snow mainly over the mountains here in, let's say, northwestern South Carolina. Yeah, a lot of this might be coming to an end soon in Greenville. Maybe in the next hour or two, we could see the snowfall rates really start to drop off. Spartanburg, you're going to have a bit longer. It looks like maybe another 3 to 4 hours of snowfall for you guys. But eventually, this is going to propagate off to the east. Columbia, South Carolina, you're finally getting into the heavy snowfall now. And you got at least 6 to maybe 8 hours of heavy snowfall on the way. So it's going to really start to pile up here in the next hour or two. And if you live north of Myrtle Beach towards Florence, that's another area that's receiving heavy snowfall. Again, Fayetteville, Wilmington, Raleigh, Wilson, all of these areas have been in the dry slot for many hours now. And it's going to really cut down on the snowfall totals that were expected in the region. Now, further north into Virginia, let's say near Danville, South Boston, Martinsville, that Interstate 58 corridor looks like you still have moderate to heavy snowfall in some areas. If I were to go to Martinsville in particular, that's kind of a bullseye for this storm in Southern Virginia. That's an area that could pick up 4 to 6 inches easily. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see some 7-inch amounts in Martinsville. Greensboro, Winston-Salem, High Point, again, that's another area that could see easily 8 to 10 inches of snow. It looks like the area that's going to probably see the most in western North Carolina will be around Charlotte. Again, we were talking about Interstate 85 before. That's probably the most dangerous road to drive on in terms of interstates here this afternoon. And again, we're talking about anywhere from, I believe, Greensboro, where we have Interstate 85 begin, all the way down to Charlotte, and then points further south and west into Spartanburg. If you're traveling anytime between now and really 5 p.m. from Spartanburg north and west through Greensboro, that's going to be a very difficult area to travel. One of the things we saw on the high resolution model, and I think needs to be discussed here, is not only the dry slot that we have over Raleigh, down into Fayetteville, down into Wilmington, North Carolina, but there could be a secondary dry slot that sets up in between the snow bands, even over, let's say, South Carolina. And you can kind of make it out here in parts of Charleston. So let's say along this interstate here, Interstate 26, there could be another dry slot that sets up parallel to this interstate. And it's hard to tell exactly where it's going to set up, but that will really impact snowfall totals and snowfall rates in that area as well. Now, as far as the heaviest snowfall currently, it looks like anywhere between maybe Jacksonville and Beaufort. We have temperatures in the low to mid 20s here. I think what would be really cool to check out here is not only the traffic cameras north and east of Wilmington, North Carolina, but also, let's say, into New Bern here, and then also up towards Kill Devil Hills again, just to get an idea as to how heavy the snowfall is in this area currently. But I would imagine this is where the heaviest snowfall is occurring with this current system. So yeah, that's the next thing we're going to do. We're going to check out Wilmington, North Carolina. And yeah, we can see here that we have some very, very heavy precipitation moving in from the coast here into Jacksonville, into Moorhead Beach, northward into New Bern, and eventually towards Kingston and Greenville with time. But yeah, if you live anywhere between, let's say, Jacksonville and Moorhead up to New Bern, it looks like we could have some very, very heavy snowfall at the moment. And by contrast, if you move south and west towards Wilmington, there is nothing. Even south and west towards Myrtle Beach at the moment, there's nothing. So for everybody living from Charleston, let's say north to Myrtle Beach to Wilmington, very little in the way of snowfall at the moment. Will you guys actually see some heavy snowfall? I mean, it is possible. But with these developing dry slots in the system, we're going to see some areas that don't receive the same amounts of snowfall that were projected even last night by some of your local weathermen. And I know it's going to be kind of a headache for the forecasters in this area because, again, 50 miles away, you could be seeing 5, 6 inches of snow easily. And then in your own backyard, nothing. And that's just kind of crazy to think about. But that is currently the case in North Carolina. That's also the case in South Carolina. So let's do that. Let's see if we can kind of find some traffic cameras here in eastern North Carolina, near Jacksonville, near Moorhead City, and get an idea of whether or not this is actually some sleet mixing into the precipitation, or is this all heavy snow? Okay, so in southern North Carolina, this is along US Interstate 70, we have whiteout conditions. And this indeed is all snow that's coming down here. It looks like it's next to maybe a CVS pharmacy here along US Interstate 70 in North Carolina. But yeah, very heavy snowfall, whiteout conditions. Roads are completely snow covered here. So this is probably the most dangerous travel area currently in the state of North Carolina. Now, if we move a little bit further to the north, right? Let's say we were to maybe you move up Interstate 70. Do we have any cameras here? Maybe near Craven County. This is actually a beautiful area going over, let's say, the Neuse River. But yeah, you can see heavy snow and fog over this area. But yeah, I know it's a dangerous area to travel, but that'd be a really pretty view at the moment to go over the river. And let's say if we go a little bit further to the south and west, so we can find some traffic cameras here somewhere. Swansboro up to Jacksonville. I'm surprised there's no cameras in this area. So that's rather unfortunate. I would have liked to kind of shown you guys what it's doing currently. And as we move further south and west, let's say as we're getting towards maybe Wilmington, South Carolina, as far as the snowfall amounts, it really lightens up. So near Surf City, near Holly Ridge, that area. So Interstate 210. Again, we got heavy snowfall coming down, but again, temperatures are probably around freezing, maybe a little bit below freezing in the upper 20s here. I'm sure the roadways and the parking lots were treated overnight. But yeah, it's going to take some more time really to pile up in this area, even though it's very heavy snowfall. And it might be really starting to get going here in the next hour in this area. But as we go, let's say further south into Wilmington near Wrightsville Beach, next to nothing is actually happening at the moment. You can see where people are just traveling normally in this part of North Carolina. But that's resembling what we were seeing right on the radar itself, where heavy snowfall was really confined to Morehead City, near Jacksonville, also North Carolina, in the eastern part of the state. But yeah, near Wrightsville Beach, uh, down towards Oak Island, that area, not much in the way of anything, right? We're seeing mainly clear skies in that area. And you can even tell by the traffic conditions on the map where you see yellow, that's where we're seeing the heavier snowfall in eastern North Carolina. Now, the next place I want to kind of take a look at here is over Kill Devil Hills, right? We were looking at that maybe an hour ago and getting an update on what the snow is doing there. Sammy. So, yeah, we can see in US 158 here, we have snowfall uh, in the parking lots that's beginning to stick. The roadways are still fairly clear in the area. We can see over US 158 that, yeah, traffic conditions are not too bad yet, but I would expect that to kind of deteriorate over the next hour or so. And I'd like to check back in maybe around 4 p.m. to see how things have actually changed in the Kill Devil Hills area. Now, what happens as we go a little bit further inland? Let's say as we go across Roanoke Island, um, and this would be what route? Yeah, US Highway 64 over the Alligator River. Yeah, we can see where the roads are still pretty clear here. Um, the water conditions, it looks like the cloud deck is very low here, but there is snowfall coming down. We can see that. Unfortunately, there is no animation here where we can show you let's say the cars moving over the bridge and the snowfall adding up. Unfortunately, we can't show you that with these particular cameras here. But the snow is coming down, and we are seeing some accumulation in the Kill Devil Hills area. And as we move northward along the Outer Banks, we probably find more accumulation inland. And this is US 158 again, near Powell's Point in North Carolina. And indeed, we are seeing more snowfall accumulating. So a coating to maybe a half an inch so far here. And as you go further northward along US 158, the temperatures are going to really drop. You're going to see temperatures in the mid 20s, even some lower 20s as you go further up the interstate. Now, near Chapel Hill, North Carolina, we weren't seeing any snow maybe an hour, hour and a half ago, and now it's really starting to pick up. And it's going from nothing to very heavy snow. So let's see what we got here. And my goodness, is it heavy? It's almost a complete whiteout now in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So again, this is along Interstate 40. We're going from, again, nothing to basically whiteout conditions from where we started maybe an hour, hour and a half ago with our last, let's say, traffic cam discussion. And this would be a nightmare to travel on currently along Interstate 40 near the Raleigh area and Durham area of North Carolina. And let's see, how far east do we have to go before we get out of the snow? So if we get into Raleigh itself, right, in Wake County, what happens to the snow? Yeah, we can start to see some snow beginning to accumulate here near Raleigh. Again, this is along Interstate 40 still, but this is along Wade Avenue near Raleigh, North Carolina. And it is starting to come down, but it's far lighter amounts compared to what we were seeing just to the west. And as we zoom out a little bit here, you can kind of see west of Raleigh, there's a lot of yellow, right, on the road map here. And you have to go a little bit further to the east, right, of Raleigh to see the yellow really pick up again. So there's been two storms really, in a way, taking place in North Carolina. And in between, barely anything, right? It's been occurring. So much of the Raleigh Durham area is now finally getting in on the snowfall. And we could see a quick 3 to 6 inches of snowfall for areas that are receiving it now. I do have a concern for the people that love snow, let's say on the southeastern part of town, receiving next to nothing. We were looking at some of the banding here of snowfall in central North Carolina, and it went from a lot to nothing very quickly. And you're going to see, yeah, some of your neighbors off to the north and west receiving a lot of snowfall. Same thing for your neighbors to the east. You're going to see some high snowfall amounts in the state of North Carolina, but some locations here are going to really miss out on the snow. So this is the intersection of I-40 and US 421 in North Carolina. Again, looks like moderate to heavy snowfall here, probably around an inch an hour rates that are falling. So it's still really piling up here as you get towards, let's say, Greensboro, North Carolina. And what about Winston-Salem? Let's say the south part of town here in Winston-Salem. Again, moderate to heavy snowfall coming down there. And this is exactly what we were seeing on the radar map. It was just coming down very quickly, probably around an inch an hour again in the Winston-Salem area. And around Thomasville Road, we can see where, yeah, the road conditions have really deteriorated in that area. Now, as we go south and west, let's say towards Charlotte itself, let's see if we can actually get into the right area here. So US 29 here in North Carolina, we can see whiteout conditions there. And this might be over an inch an hour, maybe 1 to 2 inches an hour, the snowfall rates here. So, yeah, some of these locations that we're seeing in North Carolina are picking up their heaviest snowfall for the entire event, and it's occurring right now. And what we're going to see is not only the phasing happening in the next couple of hours here in North Carolina, but we're going to see probably the heaviest snowfall amounts Winston-Salem, Greensboro, down to Charlotte between now and about 6 p.m., I would say for you guys. One of the things, too, we were looking at places like Asheville before, North Carolina, and just getting an idea of what was happening there. When we look at Asheville now, it's still light to moderate snowfall, maybe along the more moderate side that's coming down currently. Again, half an inch to maybe an inch an hour of what's falling now. But a lot of what you've seen is what you're going to get in Asheville. I think the amounts of snow are going to really lighten up here in the next hour or so. But again, a good 4 inches of snow, maybe as high as 6 inches of snow in the Asheville area. Let's go into the actual Charlotte area. I was on the outskirts of the town before, Mecklenburg County in particular. So let's just kind of go towards the center of town at the moment. And we can see the heavier snow here, right? We can see, again, the inch an hour snowfall rates that are occurring. The highways are completely covered at the moment. Again, this is a interstate. So you can imagine the secondary roads, primary roads are all covered at this time. So this is probably the most dangerous part of the storm for you guys. And this would be the time I stay off the roads if I lived in, let's say, Charlotte, North Carolina. And much the same was true, right, to the north into Greensboro and Winston-Salem. So, guys, we were taking a look at Greensboro, we were taking a look at Winston-Salem, Charlotte, even Asheville. Before that, we looked at Kill Devil Hills. It's just really getting going again in Kill Devil Hills. Nothing's really accumulating yet. But as we moved into Jacksonville, right, and moved into Morehead City, North Carolina. Those were two areas along the eastern shore of the state that were receiving very heavy snowfall. Um, and we know for a fact that area does not receive snowfall every year, right? It's typically maybe once every 10 to 15 years we see a storm like this. So let's just take one last look at that. And this is near Atlantic Beach, um, Pine Knoll Shores, Broad Creek, Newport, that area. Again, basically whiteout conditions there along US Interstate 70. So we're seeing there that, yeah, there's going to be a lot of snow adding up in this particular area. We're looking at temperatures before. Temperatures were in the mid 20s, right? So those snowfall ratios are probably anywhere from 15 inches per inch of, let's say, liquid equivalent. They were showing that it could be upwards of 20 to 1. So I don't think that would be the case here in eastern North Carolina. It will indeed be a wetter snow than what we're seeing in Charlotte. But even still, ratios of 15 to 1 will be quite impressive from this storm. Well, guys, what I want to do next is go to Virginia one more time and take a look at southern parts of the state, in particular Danville, Martinsville, excuse me, and see what's going on there. Okay, so if we look at South Boston, I'm sure there's a little bit of snow still coming down there. I doubt it's too heavy, but we can kind of see here on the video itself that, yeah, there's snow covered roads here, right? We've got probably slush. We have on this particular highway in particular, it's not completely clear. So I'm sure it's icy driving conditions right now in South Boston. And it probably deteriorates as we go further to the west, I would imagine, as the snowfall rates actually pick up. So let's say if we go to southwestern portions of Danville. Yeah, we can see where the snowfall rates kind of pick up here, where it's a moderate to a heavy snow. And yeah, they probably have a good 3 to 4 inches on the ground already, I'd imagine, in this part of the state of Virginia. And they could see another inch or two easily. So snowfall totals of 5 to 6 inches are not out of the question in western parts of Danville. One final stop I want to make here in Southern Virginia is near Martinsville and get an idea of what the snowfall is doing there. This again is probably the heaviest amount of snowfall in the state of Virginia. You can see those big fluffy flakes falling here, and they've probably got a good solid 4 to 5 inches in Martinsville currently. I imagine we could see some 8-inch amounts in Martinsville by the end of the event. But in general, yeah, I think maybe upwards of 4 to 5 inches have already fallen in the Martinsville area. Now, yeah, I think we'll leave it at that in the state of Virginia. I think that the main areas of concern will be from Danville to Martinsville, maybe as far north as Rocky Mount. So maybe that's another area we can zoom in on here, Interstate 220 up to Rocky Mountain. Again, far less in terms of the amounts of snowfall here even. Some of this is probably leftover snow from the last event. But yeah, maybe an inch or two has fallen in addition to what we saw previously. So in general, yeah, this is a snow for North Carolina, for South Carolina, Eastern Georgia, Eastern Tennessee, really places that did not get it in terms of snowfall last time. So all of you guys that kind of missed out on the snow in the previous event are receiving it with this storm. And yeah, if you think about the Eastern Carolinas in particular, there was no ice, no snow last time, right, from that storm. But this time we're getting it. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and kind of switch gears and look at South Carolina once again. And the main areas we were concerned about were near Greenville, Spartanburg. Um, Again, going up that Interstate 85 corridor. They all say winter storm warning, reduce speed. So yeah, along Interstate 85, mile marker 47, we have moderate to heavy snowfall here. Again, this is all brand new. This is not that system that we saw a week ago in this region. I think a lot of this is new snowfall that we're seeing. Again, several inches on the ground, maybe 3 to 4 inches so far in this area. Now, going north and east of this area, let's say north and east of Greenville, between the two cities, Spartanburg and Greenville, we have probably the same kind of conditions. Again, moderate to heavy snowfall here. This part of the interstate's more covered in general. It's going to be highly dependent on snowfall rates, though. So a lot of the chemicals they put down the roads can handle a certain rate of snow, and it allows them to clear it much sooner. But if you get up towards 1-2 inches an hour snowfall rates, it's going to be nearly impossible to keep up with in terms of clearing these highways. So yeah, as we move into Spartanburg, much the same story. We have moderate to heavy snowfall moving through the area, probably several inches on the ground of new snow. In this particular image, yeah, we got this tractor trailer that's coming to a stop here. I don't know if they're stopping for the duration of the storm, but it might be a good idea. But yeah, that's what we're seeing currently. And I think before we were seeing maybe in the state of North Carolina where we saw an accident right on Interstate 40. So yeah, I think it might be a smart thing to do, kind of just settle in for the day. I think a lot of these locations are going to be deteriorating in terms of driving conditions between now and midnight. Now, some of the worst that we're seeing on the highway is as you move to the extreme north of South Carolina along Interstate 26. And we can't really see it too well, but you kind of make out here that there's at least moderate snowfall coming down here on Interstate 26. I'd imagine this is a location where you've seen near the mountains maybe 4 to 5 inches of snowfall, and you're getting towards the end of the storm itself. And yeah, I think you still might end up with maybe 6 to 8 inches of snow in this area. But yeah, a lot of the heaviest amounts of snow have already fallen if you live here in upstate South Carolina. So we were talking about it before, but Columbia, South Carolina is an area that doesn't normally see a snowfall like this. They don't see 10 inches of snow very often. In fact, the last time we saw 10 inches of snow was around 2010, maybe 2011 was the last time. And let's kind of zoom in here just to get an idea of how heavy the snowfall is currently. So in the center of town, yeah, the snow is still going. We have light to moderate snowfall, generally speaking. The heaviest band has not moved into the area yet, but it's expected to do so in the next hour. And we'll start to see snowfall not only accumulate faster in these grassy areas, but also on the roads themselves. So let's take a look at just to the north and west of Columbia and get a good idea where the snow is really starting to accumulate. this is not really giving us a good image here along Interstate 26. It looks like it's still a moderate snowfall that's coming down here. Pretty manageable, if I were to be honest here, looking at the roads. But again, you're seeing that people are kind of slowing down now right near Columbia. But yeah, in general, maybe 1 inch, maybe an inch and a half of snow has fallen in this area. It doesn't look like there's terrible driving conditions yet, but again, the heaviest bands have not moved into the area, this particular area of South Carolina yet. And how about to the south of town? Let's say we move further south here of Columbia, South Carolina. And again, this is along Interstate 26, mile marker 142 and a half. So you can see where heavy snow is moving into the area here. There might be some early phasing of that upper level low and the low pressure off the East Coast that's occurring here. But again, kind of hard to make out on this image. This animation's kind of getting worse with time, and now it's kind of picking up again, but it gives us a general idea as to how heavy the snowfall is here. And conditions south of Columbia will probably only get worse between now and midnight as that storm begins to phase and also grow off the coast. And just by contrast, I'm going to show you Myrtle Beach. They were kind of in that dry slot before. And just to kind of drive the point home that some people are out of snow. In Myrtle Beach in particular, it's dry, it is overcast, right? And temperatures are cold enough. They just are in the dry slot between both of those storm systems. And the amounts of snow they will receive, again, more like 2 to 4 inches of snowfall for their totals versus the 8 inches or 10 inches of snow that certain areas could receive from the storm. All right, so yeah, we've looked at South Carolina again. We've looked at North Carolina, Virginia again. What we can do is take a quick look at the traffic cams in eastern Georgia, get a good idea of around Gainesville and also Athens, and just see if the snowfall is still coming down at a good clip in those areas. Again, the best thing to probably do with all of these maps is just go to the map section itself, and we can easily go into the areas that are showing the snowfall. Now, in Gainesville, we can see north and east of town in particular, we see more yellow and red. Same thing is true for Athens. So if we zoom into Gainesville, Georgia here, and we look at some of these traffic cameras here, it looks like, judging by the still image, we have just light snow in this area, and we might be wrapping up the snow in and around Gainesville, Georgia. And let's see if we can get some of this in motion here. Yeah, so in Georgia, it doesn't look like a whole lot of snow is actually coming down at the moment. The roads look fairly clear. A lot of what you've seen is what you're going to get, I guess, in eastern Georgia here. Let's go ahead and take a look at Athens, though, and see if there's a different story there in Athens. Yeah, just looking at the still image alone, it looks like we have a lower visibility there, so maybe a half a mile visibility. So give or take maybe a half an inch of snowfall in terms of the rate of snow that's coming down there. Let's see if we can get a moving video here of that. And unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. So let's kind of go out a little bit further here. There's a place called Colbert, or Colbert, and this is in far northeastern Georgia. You can see this train moving over the tracks here. Yeah, it looks like a good moderate to heavy snowfall here. And yeah, in extreme northeastern Georgia, we'll see 4 to 6 inches of snow without a doubt. Um, but again, we're getting into higher terrain, not so much colder temperatures necessarily with the system, but we are getting closer to the upper level low itself. Oh, and this is pretty. So this is over the train track there. Um, I guess it shows an intersection between 72 and 3rd Avenue at 4th Street and Madison, and this is in Georgia. But yeah, that's a pretty railroad crossing there. Again, you can see the roads are completely snow covered. It's probably got several inches of snow, maybe 4 to 5 inches of snow on the ground here. Yeah, yeah. So this would be an area where you're getting kind of the peak of the storm in Georgia. This is probably where you'll find the worst travel conditions, the highest amounts of snow. Um, yeah, if you were to travel north and east of Atlanta, this is where you would find the storm, where the real storm is really taking place. And let's say you go east of Comer towards, let's see what this word is, Alberton. So if you go directly to the east, you kind of miss out on the snow again. So directly east of Colbert, right, which is north and east of Athens, not much in the way of snowfall there. But it looks like as you go, let's say, into Danielsville, uh, into Royston, Livonia. Let's see if we can check out a traffic camera here in Georgia as well. Now, along Interstate 85, guess what, right? Mile marker 170.2 in Franklin. So this is before the, I guess, the North Fairview Road there along Interstate 85 in Georgia. Let's kind of zoom in here for a moment. But yeah, we can see that, yeah, this is a moderate to heavy snowfall here. So if you're traveling along Interstate 85, I know it's kind of like beating a dead horse here, but yeah, anywhere from Georgia, if you're north and east of Atlanta, right, traveling north and east into Charlotte, North Carolina, even north and east to, let's say, Greensboro, North Carolina, that whole stretch of I 85 is going to be dangerous between now and midnight, and probably even after midnight, depending on how the roads have been treated throughout the interstate. And we'll likely see any slush or water freeze over tonight. We were checking out temperatures earlier in the video here, the live stream showing, yeah, we're going to have teens throughout this area. And some single digits were going to be even possible in Charlotte. We're seeing a temperature, an overnight low, possibly near 10 degrees in the city of Charlotte. So yeah, any of this slush is going to freeze over as we get into the late night hours. But yeah, I like zooming out of these maps here. We get a general idea of how bad the weather is as you move north and east of Atlanta. You can see over here near Greenville, the black and yellow on the screen. And then around Charlotte, you can see all the black and gold right on the screen. Dangerous travel conditions, right, as you get into parts of South Carolina and much of North Carolina. You can kind of see that here in general on the map. It's really a storm for North Carolina and South Carolina here, where both of the states are nearly covered by the storm. And it's generally speaking a lot of areas that didn't receive extreme snow from the last event. Again, the only areas really that have missed out so far is really anywhere from Fayetteville northward into Raleigh. So that entire area has been kind of left out of the snow up to this point. But really from here on out to about 4 p.m., we're going to start to see that radar begin to fill in that area. And snowfall rates really pick up in that zone we were just talking about. So let's do that now. Let's go back to Weather Underground. We're going to take a look at that radar one more time and get an idea of where the snowfall is near Durham, near Raleigh, also down to Fayetteville. See if the snow is actually beginning to move into that area. So what's interesting is we're still seeing snow over southern Virginia. There might be some light snow over Lynchburg and Roanoke currently, but again, the heavier snowfall we were seeing, the significant snowfall was over Martinsville. But again, the heaviest snowfall in general is near Greensboro, High Point, Winston-Salem, that area. We were talking about Durham before. Durham is finally seeing snow. The heaviest band, though, has moved just west of town once again. So there is a fight between that dry slot and the heavy band of snow just west of Raleigh. And for those that love snow in the city of Raleigh, it's probably upsetting you at the moment. I can imagine. Yeah, you drive just 20 miles to the west, you run into some very, very heavy snowfall. And let's just kind of see the trend here. So, when we last checked the radar, a lot of the heavy snow was just west of town in Raleigh. And over time, it's actually retreated back to the west. So, I don't know, you guys. I look at Raleigh, Durham, and Durham is getting some snow at the moment. Greensboro continues to get the heavy snow, but you guys might really miss out on this storm. It's amazing how strong the dry slot has been between, say, these two systems here. Fayetteville, the same thing. Again, you guys are more than cold enough. You're 25 degrees, but the snow is really holding off to the west here. And then Wilmington, the same thing. Let's kind of show you that you have this heavy, heavy snow band just to the east here. We're showing the whiteout conditions over Morehead City, over Jacksonville, North Carolina. Wilmington is really missing out on the heavy snowfall here. And that's been the case since we started the stream around 12 p.m. this afternoon. We've seen this dry slot hold in place. Meanwhile, Durham, Greensboro, Charlotte, all the way down now to Columbia, South Carolina, has seen heavy snow. So, yeah, the models are still showing 3 to 4 inches of snow for Raleigh, but you're not going to see the 6, 7, 8, 9 inch amounts that you could see just off to the west. And like we were saying, Greensboro, High Point, you could see upwards of 10 inches of snowfall here. And it's going to be such a contrast in that cutoff of that precipitation and the snowfall amounts we're seeing there in the center part of the state. Eastern North Carolina is really filling in, and this is, again, probably the heaviest part of the snow in all of the storm. So it looks like, yeah, Jacksonville, we were looking at Morehead City before, Swansboro, Emerald Isle, uh, perhaps northward into Trenton, New Bern. I believe around Kingston, or rather Kinston, is a little bit lighter in general. Same thing is true for Greenville up to Williamston. And even back towards Elizabeth City, this is more on the lighter end of snowfall here. But yeah, I think the real winner here might be in southeastern North Carolina, and really between this area of Harker's Island back towards Jacksonville. This could be an area that really gets a lot of snow. We could see upwards of a foot of snow without a doubt, maybe in this area. And it just seems like when this system finally phases and merges over central North Carolina, you guys are just going to continue to stay in the moderate to heavy snow. I don't see that changing anytime soon. So, yeah, we'll probably have two winners in terms of snowfall across the state of North Carolina. So, just east of the mountains, right? Basically around the Greensboro area down to Charlotte. I think that is a zone where, yeah, you could see 8 to 10 inches of snowfall easily. And another area here, like we were just talking about near Jacksonville, uh, towards the Harker's Island area that you're seeing on the map, that whole area there could see easily 8 to 10 inches of snow. And I think many areas will see near a foot, maybe even more. So that'll be kind of interesting to see. We were worried earlier for those that love snow over South Carolina about a second dry slot. And around Georgetown, we're seeing it. It's actually kind of expanding, I believe, with time. So let's kind of backtrack here. And maybe it's just becoming more defined with time. But yeah, you can see around Georgetown here. Let's check out the road. So Route 521, north and west of Georgetown, that whole area there, even though that you have temperatures around freezing or just below freezing, it looks like a lot of you guys are going to miss out on the heavy snow. I think you will see a band of heavy snow as you get into this evening and maybe tonight, but the overall amounts are going to be far less than, let's say, just to the west, and especially compared to places like Columbia, South Carolina. Now, what could cut down on the amounts here? It looks like we have a dry slot moving in from the west here into Greenwood. So this, I don't know, was expected or not. You can kind of see how that area's dried out just in the last 20 minutes here over Greenwood. So I wonder if that's going to eventually cut into the amounts here in Columbia. But I would imagine that this upper level low is going to remain strong enough to give snow over Columbia for several more hours. Although we do have another dry slot moving in from the west. That's something we really didn't talk about much with the last storm, but you can see all these dry areas moving into the system. And I think what may be occurring, guys, is that there is a transition of power here, where the upper level low is now transferring its power to that low that's off the coast. And if that continues to do so, yeah, we're going to see phasing over Durham and Raleigh and down to Wilmington, but we might see that precipitation shield in the west really begin to break down by around 6 p.m. So that's something that, again, is kind of hard to predict. It's also kind of hard to predict how the upper level low itself is going to be torn up by the Appalachian Mountains. I think that's part of what we're seeing here. This topography can be very complicated in the Western Carolinas and have a huge impact on where these dry slots localized, right, actually set up. And in fact, over Asheville, it looks like you guys are done with the snow already. So as of 3:30, it looks like a lot of the snow is done along Interstate 85 there in Asheville. And even up towards, let's say, Wilkesboro, it looks like you guys are kind of in a dry slot at the moment. Boone, very light snow by comparison as well. And what's interesting is you get into Southern Virginia, it picks up again. We have that band that's kind of sustaining itself there near Martinsville and to Danville. So, yeah, Martinsville, Danville, you might end up with more snowfall than Raleigh, Durham, which is kind of crazy to think about because just a couple of days ago, we were talking about the possibility, right, for that part of North Carolina to receive way more than you guys. So, yeah, it was a very hard system to really figure out and pinpoint. And this radar is doing a good job of illustrating why. It's hard to really tell where this western precipitation shield was going to pivot and actually set up for the majority of the afternoon. And it just wasn't for you guys over Raleigh down to Fayetteville. It just, what a difference 50 miles makes, you know, and we're seeing it here on the map. All right, so I think the next thing I want to do here is kind of take a look at the power outage map again, kind of reiterate that the impact of that last storm that we talked about, and do it a comparison really of what we're seeing with this storm. So let's go ahead and do that real quick and take a look at the power outage map. All right, guys. So over the state of Mississippi, we've actually seen the number of power outages go down from maybe 75, 76,000 to 68,000 today. And I also want to state that these power outages are not due from the current storm. They're actually from the system that we saw last Sunday. And these are leftover power outages that are being taken care of today and probably during the rest of next week. So if I zoom into a place like Mississippi, we can see that certain counties here, again, near high population areas, have the most outages. So if we look at Lafayette County, right, there's nearly 11,000 customers that are without power there in that one county alone. And I'd imagine you guys are going to probably be without power for the next week. And the extreme part about this is that pretty much this whole past week into this weekend has been cold, right? So hopefully people are checking in on their neighbor, letting them know that, hey, if you need something, if you need water, you need food, just let me know. But a lot of these areas do not experience a severe ice storm like what we saw last weekend. And on top of it, we don't normally see this severe cold that moves in behind a system like that. So a place like northwestern Mississippi here, this is a very rare event. And like we said before, a historic event that occurred last weekend. So if we zoom out, let's say out of Mississippi, and we look at, say, Louisiana, again, 22,000, nearly 23,000 people without power there. And if we go into Tennessee, even about 51,000 people without power there. A lot of these were in Davidson County, really on the western side there of Nashville. And again, a lot of you guys are going to probably be without power going into much of next week. It's going to take some time to get through it. But yeah, this was all from that storm last week. And by comparison, if we were to look at North Carolina today, I think we saw maybe 1,000 people without power earlier when we were checking out North Carolina during the early part of the stream. And right now we have 911 customers without power. So it's actually gone down, even with the storm system continuing. The big concern really for later today is going to be over eastern North Carolina. And the big issue is going to be the developing low pressure system. You know how we talked about the bomb cyclone and the really low pressure that could be associated with it? Well, around the backside of it, it's going to be a very strong temperature gradient. And with it, we're going to have very high winds kick into eastern North Carolina. And likely what's going to happen is we're going to have not only the heavy snowfall, but we're going to have this very strong wind on the backside. And the winds could be hurricane force in terms of wind gust as we get into late tonight. And that could be enough to knock out power along the eastern coast there of North Carolina. So not only do we have the horrible driving conditions, right? We'll also have this really strong wind. And with it, we could see some really extensive power outages there along the Outer Banks and other eastern parts of North Carolina. So that'll be kind of interesting to see. And then when I make a video tomorrow, maybe we can take a look at that and see what the true impacts are of the storm. Well, guys, we're going to probably leave it at that today. I hope you enjoyed the live stream. One of the last things we looked at were not only the power outages here over Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, by comparison to North Carolina with today's storm, but we also looked at the radar right over North Carolina and talked about central portions of North Carolina not getting the same amounts of snow as what was projected even 2-3 days ago. But even in, let's say, western parts of North Carolina, eastern parts of North Carolina, we could see 8 to 10 inches of snowfall still. And this is going to have significant impacts, right? Probably for the rest of this week coming up. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see school cancellations Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week easily. Now, as far as this being an historic event, if Columbia, South Carolina approaches 8-10 inches of snowfall, it's been 15-16 years since we've seen it. If we get out towards eastern shore of North Carolina, towards Morehead City, right, Jacksonville, that area, and we received 10 or more inches of snow. That's also going to be historic. It's been about 10, 15 years since you guys have seen snow like that. So, yeah, I'm glad we had this live stream today and we got to kind of spend that time together to discuss that. But let's go ahead and take a look back at the live stream before I let go. We do not have any questions currently about what's happening with the storm, but I do appreciate those that did tune in and actually comment. Um, I hope to have more live streams like this coming up for future storms and hopefully do a better job of getting the word out there about what we'll be doing for our live streams. But yeah, this will be posted later on if you want to go back and look at the storm and kind of get an idea as the timing of the snow when it did arrive to your area. And hopefully you enjoy it. But until next time and until we post a new video, which will be Sunday, I hope to see you guys then.